rising from a mysterious flu-like virus that originated in China but has now spread to other countries in the region. It is eerily reminiscent of the SARS scare a few years ago. It's scary. That's been a topic in Davos, with billionaire investor Paul Tudor Jones addressing the coronavirus earlier today.
I would say we've got a curveball with this coronavirus. I think that's a big deal.
Well, I hope not.
I mean, it is. If you look at what happened in 2003, it was estimates range 0.5 to 2% of GDP for China, 0.5% for Southeast Asia. Stock markets sold off double digits.
All right, our Beijing Bureau Chief Eunice Yoon joining us now for the very latest. All right, Eunice, what do we know about the coronavirus right now?
Well, what we know, Brian, is that this virus has confirmed cases to the tune of 323 with 6 dead. This is a coronavirus that's similar to the SARS virus, which, if you remember, back in 2003, killed nearly 800 people. The virus was traced to a seafood market in the central city of Wuhan. It could spread person to person. The authorities have confirmed that with symptoms like fever, breathing difficulties, and lung lesions. Now, this new respiratory illness is mainly in mainland China, though today Taiwan confirmed its first case. New York, San Francisco, and LA have all joined other international airports in screening travelers from Wuhan, and Wuhan itself has taken some new measures in order to try to get control of the situation, and that would include banning tour groups out of Wuhan, and also, Brian, something that's really big for the city, and that is canceling all of its Lunar New Year celebrations, which from a Chinese context, or say the U.S. equivalent, would be as if the U.S. decided to cancel Christmas. So the top health authority in this country has also said that it's going to be giving a briefing, a regular one, and the first one is going to be tonight at Tuesday, 9 p.m. U.S. time.
Oh, scary stuff. Eunice Yoon, thank you very much for joining us late in the evening in Beijing. Appreciate it. Well, that new coronavirus, just one area of concern addressed at Davos. Market heavyweight Stephen Schwartzman and Paul Tudor Jones sharing their views this morning.
All markets have gone up pretty dramatically, over the last few years. I guess the S&P is somewhere around 19 times. And if you pay a premium to that, that's pretty high.
We're just, again, in the craziest monetary fiscal mix in history. It's so explosive. It defies imagination, and I don't think anything's changed. It reminds me a lot of early 99.
So along with that, what else should be on the minds of all you investors out there right as the markets hover at record highs? Let's bring in Jeff Crumpleman. He is Chief Investment Strategist at Mariner Wealth Advisors, and Kevin Mon, Chief Investment Officer at Hennion and Walsh. First, Kevin, welcome, and Jeff, thank you. To the topic of the day, do you change your investing outlook at all, given some of these scares that we are seeing in China, a la SARS, a number of years ago?
Not necessarily right now. We'll see how this plays out over time. But I do believe, Brian, that 2020 will be a year marked by two distinct halves. The first half of the year, we do see more upside potential in the stock market, thanks in large part to a dovish Federal Reserve that's likely to do nothing this year outside of balance sheet adjustments, a very strong U.S. consumer, and the general state of FOMO amongst retail investors that's going to have more money continuing to come into equities overall. However, as we move towards the second half and the political season really starts to ramp up, we believe there will be bouts of intermittent volatility, and as a result, diversification and an overweighting towards U.S. dividend-paying equities is beneficial.
Jeff, are you worried about valuations or anything else right now?
Certainly it's not as cheap as it was going into 2019 when PEs were at 13.5 times. But we don't think that it's overly expensive right now, and we do think that earnings growth will accelerate and pick up in 2020. And actually, PEs at these levels are not all that abnormal for low inflation, low interest rates. And if you look at the equity premium, if you look at the yield on earnings yield on stocks versus bonds, it's actually quite attractive. So we think they're fine, and they can hover at these levels and benefit from the earnings growth that we think we'll see later in the year. And it's certainly not 1999. I think that's a huge overstatement. When you had 27-time forward PE, and you had on a napkin no revenues, and you had valuation. So it's certainly not.
But I'll follow up with you, Jeff, because what's interesting when I hear that from you is that you're recommending really three natural resource plays. You're recommending the GLD, the gold ETF, Pan Am Silver, a silver mining company, and Albemarle, which is actually the largest or one of the largest lithium producers in the world. Why are you digging in the dirt here for some of these stocks?
So we've made a lot of money with a blend of growth and value, and we've owned the FANG stocks, and we've owned Lululemon and Marriott and Visa and all these names, and we continue to hold those positions. All we're doing is actually trimming back a little bit and taking profits on some of those names, still owning them, but trimming back and getting exposures that complement what we have. And right now, in a period of uncertainty, and you're going to get that volatility that the other guest is talking about in an election year. Gold does well during periods of policy uncertainty. POS is just a great example of a silver, the number one silver mining company in the world with great reserves and growth, and demand for silver's up. And then lithium is a secular play on electric cars as the largest lithium producer in the world. So, we're just kind of balancing out. It's that blend. You got offense, you got defense, and it's just blending out that portfolio for balance. Do
we still, Kevin, play offense, given that we've got an election this year, from what I've told? First day of an impeachment trial starting. Exactly. And 75% of the institutional investors surveyed by Strategas, you may have just heard, believe that Donald Trump is going to win. Are people too complacent right now?
I still think there's growth opportunities, at least for the first half of the year, in areas such as biotech from an M&A perspective, consumer discretionary, riding the strength of the U.S. consumer in the e-commerce ecosystem. And then from an income perspective, preferreds look really attractive right here.
How do you invest in preferreds?
So you can actually invest in the preferred securities themselves. The largest issuer of preferreds are financials. Financials, as we know, is one of the two sectors.
What's the benefit over common stock?
So you have a preferential treatment in the event of a bankruptcy. It also pays a much higher dividend yield than common stocks, and right now much higher than the 10-year, which is yielding about 1.8%.
What's the downside of preferreds?
Well, they don't have an actual defined maturity date, but you don't have as much volatility, but you limit your upside potential with preferreds as well, as opposed to common stocks. But we like preferreds and we like municipals as it relates to income.
Okay, Kevin Mon, Hennion and Walsh, Jeff Crumpleman, Mariner Wealth Advisors. Guy, I like it. You brought some new ideas: preferreds, lithium, gold, Pan Am, silver. Better than Pan Am Airlines. Jeff, thank you very much. All right, on deck. Digital publishing is doing something it has not done ever since the dawn of the internet. We'll tell you what that is ahead. Plus, in need of money and told to drop the 737 MAX brand, we've got the very latest on Boeing as its crisis wears on. And as a reminder, you can always watch us or listen to us live on the go from anywhere on the Cnbc app. The Exchange, back in 2 minutes.
Take the helm and ignite your spirit of adventure with a Sunsail holiday. Relax on a skippered yacht from sunny St. Lucia to the nutmeg-scented shores of Grenada, or take charge with a bareboat charter along Dubrovnik's glittering coastline. With up to 20% off selected destinations, now is the time to book your Sunsail adventure. Sunsail. See the world differently.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are, or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
On a TUI tour, our English-speaking local guides will take you off the tourist trail. They won't just help you find the perfect souvenir, they'll show you how to make it. Choose from over 70 unforgettable tours worldwide. From tranquil temples in India to sunrise safaris in South Africa. On a TUI tour, we cross the T's, dot the I's, and put you in the middle. Book now and enjoy up to £200 off per booking. Booking T's and C's and minimum spend applies. Selected holidays only. At all protected.
Do you remember? Here at Tesco, we're celebrating over 100 years of great value with even more great prices that take you back. Like a 12-pack of Bird's Eye chicken dippers, now half price, from £2 to just £1. All this week at Tesco.
Selected larger stores subject to availability. Offer ends 27th of January.
Got big plans for 2020? Capture and share every highlight on a gorgeous iPhone 11 with an ultra-wide camera. In Tesco Mobile's big January sale, you can get the latest iPhone for £40.75 a month with double data. That's a mighty 20 gigs. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 26th of January. Was 10 gigs, now 20 gigs. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements with Tesco Mobile required. Subject to status. Phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
No electric slide for Tesla, China concerns, and a rare upgrade for Victoria's Secret. Here are your stocks to watch. Number 1, Tesla soaring again. New Street Research surging its price target to $800 a share from $530. They think that Tesla will sell 2 to 3 million cars per year after 2025. Stock 2 is really 2 stocks. Las Vegas Sands and Wynn both lower on fears over that coronavirus. The outbreak raising concern about consumer travel and spending for the upcoming Lunar New Year. And lastly, L Brands, slightly higher. KeyBank upgraded the beaten-up owner of Victoria's Secret to an overweight from a sector weight. The bank says that L Brands is increasingly likely to engage in some sort of value-creating transaction. All right, let's step out of the world of money and business for a moment. Get to Sue Herrera with a CNBC News Update. Sue.
Thanks, Brian, very much. Here's what's happening at this hour, everyone. NATO's chief, Jens Stoltenberg, says the alliance must beef up its military training operation in Iraq to ensure that its member countries are not drawn back into combat there.
The issue we are looking into is not whether we can launch new combat operations. The issue is whether we can do something that prevents us from being forced into new combat. Prevention is better than intervention.
Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido meeting UK Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab in London. Guaido is recognized as the rightful interim president of Venezuela, not only by the UK, but nearly 60 other countries, including the US. But he has so far failed to unseat President Nicolas Maduro. And sports books in New Jersey are the first offering movie buffs the opportunity to bet on the Oscars, which are set for February 9th. To prepare for the star-studded night, Play USA has created a complete rundown of the Oscars at its website. Check that one out. That's the news update this hour. Brian, back to you.
Have you seen the movie 1970?
No, but we are going to see it this weekend. My kids really want to see that movie.
I know it's our movie. Fantastic. It's Universal, so I'm a total homer. It's one of the 20 best movies I've ever seen just for the cinematography.
Yes.
I have no idea how they filmed it. I don't want to know. It was magic. Run, don't walk.
I hear it is absolutely fabulous. And the fact that my teenage kids want to see it, I think, is really amazing, too. So it's got great buzz.
A little tough to watch.
Oh, but, absolutely.
I won't give it away. So you're in for a treat. Sue Herrera, thank you very much.
You got it, Brian.
All right, here's what else is ahead on the exchange.
Coming up, less plastic but more plants. A look at Starbucks' new plan. Speaking of coffee, a look at Luckin Coffee's massive run, and if you can still get in. A scandal hits Best Buy. And Disney Plus, HBO Max, Peacock, and Amazon Prime. The list of competitors for Netflix is growing. A look at what to expect from the company tonight. That's all coming up on The Exchange.
Whether you've enjoyed the legendary terrain and Telluride.
Let's get this right, sir. You didn't see 3 men dressed as clowns take off in a van with a Renaissance painting because you were distracted by, and I quote, a sporty red compact SUV with a bold mesh grille, a sculpted bonnet with sweeping roofline on diamond-cut alloys.
And beautiful rear haunches.
So, you saw a Jaguar E-Pace. But what about the clowns?
What clowns?
Jaguar E-Pace, designed to steal attention. Search Jaguar E-Pace.
Come here, sister. Papa's in the swing.
I'm your daughter. What you cooking?
Albert Badler potatoes. I'm doing the jerk.
Very appropriate.
I'm doing the fly.
Doing the monkey?
The mashed potatoes.
Jump back, Jack. I'll handle that.
See you later, alligator.
Hey, back here and get the roast on.
Grab a brand new recyclable bag today and do the Albert Bartlett.
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
All right, Stan, will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, I'll try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, keep me out the cold jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, East London jobs, West London jobs, extra hour in bed jobs, startup jobs, late start jobs, get home in the daylight jobs, banking jobs, building jobs, flexible working on a Friday jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30 gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Best Buy's worst case scenario, maybe more plants at the coffee shop, and Google says tech has to face the music. It is time for Rapid Fire. Here now to break down the headlines of the day are Courtney Reagan, Robert Frank, and Seema Modi. First up, Best Buy investigating CEO Corey Berry for alleged misconduct. In an anonymous letter, she's accused of an inappropriate romantic relationship with a now former senior vice president of Best Buy before she became CEO. Berry has been an important part of the retailer's turnaround story since taking over last June. Shares of Best Buy have grown by nearly 40%. Worth noting, this is not the first time a Best Buy executive has behaved inappropriately. Former CEO Brian Dunn resigned in 2012 for engaging in similar conduct. Courtney Reagan, we don't know how this is going to play out, but based on Brian Dunn's story, this is a company that has no problem cutting ties with CEOs who are found to have acted inappropriately.
And I would imagine this makes it a little bit more hypersensitive. It's always going to be a sensitive issue when you have allegations like this come to light, but exactly the history that Best Buy has with this in 2012, as you point out, when Brian Dunn resigned. Now, his, at least we found out, had a little bit more layers to it of complication. The female that he was accused of having this relationship with was very clearly subordinate. There was some...
Because he was the CEO at the time of the alleged relationship.
He was,
correct?
and there, yes.
Neither of these two folks apparently were CEO. Corey was not CEO at the time.
That's right. Corey just became CEO
So it may have been a lateral relationship in terms of their position of authority inside the company.
Potentially. I mean, she was CFO first before she became CEO, and he was an SVP. So a little unclear if there was a reporting
in this
structure.
timeline, this relationship allegedly would have happened.
There are many details that we do not know, but the board has confirmed that they are indeed looking into these allegations, and there is an outside law firm that I can confirm is helping them to do so, but the law firm won't really say what else they're looking at right now.
The big question is what made it inappropriate. So, they grew up together.
If there's an imbalance of power, that's what
exactly.
That would be the definition of inappropriate.
It would be number one. So we don't know. They grew up together in the company. He was actually a senior vice president first before she was. So it's hard to see where that dynamic might have been, changed. The other question is, did they use corporate funds? Were corporate funds used? And secondly, are you required to disclose a relationship with like this, regardless of what the power structure is? So we don't know if they said inappropriate, but we don't know why.
We don't know what that means.
Still a lot of questions we're trying to get answers to. But in general, and maybe this is a naive point to make, but the fact that certain CEOs and executives still feel like they can get away without disclosing an inappropriate romantic relationship in this day and age where social media and technology makes it much easier to track or expose someone is just surprising.
But a lot of people do meet their spouses at the office.
Yeah, like me.
Exactly.
I met mine
we spend a lot of time here, so you don't know Find out. All right, let's talk about Starbucks. The coffee chain is giving up plans or adding to plans to become more resource positive in its effort to prioritize sustainability. The move includes shifting away from reusable packaging and making a push for more plant-based food. In fact, shares of Beyond Meat are jumping ostensibly on this news. Kate Rogers joining us here to talk about Starbucks' goals. Does that mean that the sausage, egg, and cheese at Starbucks is going away in favor of Beyond Sausage, Egg, and Cheese?
They didn't announce any direct partnerships with suppliers like Beyond or Impossible, Brian, but let me walk you through some. Says it plans to cut its carbon emissions in half in its direct operations and its supply chain, to conserve or replenish half of the water taken for coffee production or operations, and to reduce half of the waste sent to landfills by its stores and in its manufacturing process. As you mentioned, the company also said it would be offering more plant-based options on its menu in order to become more resource positive. It did add some dairy alternatives earlier this month, and you mentioned Beyond Meat really getting a nice pop on the news today. You know, we know Tim Hortons does have a sandwich in this category. Dunkin' Donuts, of course, teamed up with Beyond Meat. So analysts have been watching to see if and when Starbucks would get in on the game, much like they're watching McDonald's. But more broadly, the company really, furthering its commitment to the environment in this big announcement today.
I'm more interested, Seema, if resource positive is the new catchphrase we need to start adopting.
Yeah. That or plant-based diets. I think the fact that Starbucks...
I'm not familiar with resource positive.
As Kate points out, though, the fact that Starbucks is getting into this space, whatever they want to call it, resource positive or not, just confirms that this is no longer just a trend or a fad. This is a movement, and it's really taking hold, and consumers are responding to it.
Are you supposed to say you're resource negative?
I will never be resource positive. I consume so much food every day and everything else. But what's interesting is not so much the meat issue, but the packaging. I mean, to cut their landfills by half, I'm really curious how they're going to do that. And to reuse all the water that they use for coffee, how are they going to do that? So I'm really interested in technologically how they're going to get these two. These are big targets.
I was just going to say, Kate, as far as my limited knowledge about this, I think making coffee or harvesting the coffee beans is really water intensive.
Yeah, definitely. And they do have a big move into ethically sourced coffee. That's been important to the company for quite some time. But I will say, to Robert's point about the packaging, they have made pushes in the past to try and get you to use reusable cups. They give them to you early around the holidays. You get somewhat of a discount. Don't forget, too, they made this big announcement about using plastic straws and getting rid of those by 2020.
I know, but let's also it's like you got to tell the whole story. It's like electric cars. You got to talk about the batteries. Mobile apps, cell phones use huge amounts of power because of data center usage. And mobile apps probably encourage more people to drive and leave their cars running as they idle while they run in and get their food or sit in a drive. There's got to be a total holistic view in some of these things.
Well, some of that's beyond their control, but you're right.
Some of these things are beyond meat.
Yes.
Robert, thank you. All right, next up, the coronavirus that is really concerning China is impacting stocks outside of that country, in particular, luxury stocks. Take a look at LVMH, Burberry, and Hermes, among others. Courtney, obviously the fear here is that consumers in China and elsewhere simply won't go to the mall or go to stores because they don't want to be around other people who might be affected.
And or tourism will get cut down, and tourism is such a big part in so many of these Asian markets, both tourists leaving, tourists coming in and buying these goods. And I think this happens oftentimes when you see these outbreaks and there's an immediate pullback and a lot of fear until we get more information. We all were just talking before we started here. We don't exactly know a lot about this virus and how it's incubated and how it's passed on. And right now there's a lot of operations out of fear, and these are really important markets to these players.
Yeah, I mean, the luxury economy, the good thing is that the Chinese are buying more luxury in China now than they used to. The bad thing is that the Chinese are also traveling more broadly than they were during SARS. Remember, SARS was a 40
It was also H5N1 or the avian flu, whichever.
Yeah, but SARS was the big one, and this is the worry because that was a $40 billion hit to the economy, $7 billion hit to the U.S. Remember, the stock market fell 16% just during the SARS epidemic. So this could be a market event. And given how quickly it's grown, we don't know the incubation period. We don't know a lot about this, but we're already up to, what, over 200
and we
cases?
still have, by the way, Seema, a year of tariffs, that have happened and months to go. And by the way, Hong Kong, it's been off the front pages, but it is far from being settled. China's facing a lot of issues at one time.
A laundry list of challenges facing China's leadership and President Xi, not just the trade tensions in Hong Kong, but now this recent outbreak. And the timing could not be worse, right ahead of the Chinese Lunar New Year, where, as you guys were pointing out, millions of Chinese travel either home or overseas across Asia. For these luxury companies, 1/3 of total luxury spend is from China. Despite the slowdown, these companies like LVMH and Kering, they've been really successful inside China. So does that continue amidst this outbreak?
Okay, sit tight here because we actually have some news on this right now that appears to be impacting the markets. Stocks are losing some steam right now. The Dow is now down 70 points. It's dropped 50 points in the last couple of minutes. There is now a report from the Center for Disease Control that they have the first U.S. case of that coronavirus. Airline stocks also moving lower on this headline. American Airlines, Southwest, and Delta. Again, no other real information other than the CDC has confirmed that there now is at least one case in the United States of this coronavirus. We don't know where. We don't know how long this has been known, but it is impacting the equity markets. The Dow dropping about 50 points in the matter of a couple. Oh, it's in Seattle. I'm just getting word in my ear. Thank you very much, Christina, that this case was confirmed in Seattle. Obviously, a big travel hub coming from Asia as well. All right, we'll get you more, of course, on that story as it develops. The Dow down at 70. All right, last but not least in rapid fire, Alphabet CEO Sundar Pichai weighing in on facial recognition. And he's actually for a temporary ban on it. Speaking at a conference, Pichai said it is important to be clear-eyed about what could go wrong with the technology and urged regulators to take a proportionate approach to governing it. He framed any sort of ban as a, quote, waiting period before we really think about how this is being used. I mean, I think taking a sort of a jab at China, which is a huge TikTok and a huge user, Robert, of facial recognition technology.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like Alphabet has the technology, but they're sort of holding back on it until there's some sort of consensus as to what the regulation is going to be. But clearly, states are going to be able to use this to their advantage, and even companies, unless we figure out some kind of broad policy of how we're going to. The technology has gone much faster than the government's ability to keep up with it or understand what it can be used for.
Yeah, and it was interesting in that op-ed by Sundar Pichai. He talked about his upbringing in India and how every technology development has such a profound impact on his family and its ability to have a better life. Fast forward to now, as the CEO of one of arguably the most powerful technology companies, he's now in a position with understanding the benefits of artificial intelligence, but also recognizing there are a lot of risks without the proper regulation. I also found it interesting how he said the regulation should be customized per every sector. So whether it's medical devices or electric cars, regulators shouldn't just look for a blanket AI regulation. They should just try to customize it per sector.
I do, though, Courtney Reagan. I mean, I guess I'm just old and cynical because, you know, no company tracks your movements more than Google.
I know.
I mean, assuming you use Google products, that is. Obviously, you have no Google products. They don't. But, I mean, Google Maps knows when you stop to get a cup of coffee.
Right.
They know where you stopped. They know what you're writing in your emails.
It was like
suddenly now we're worried about facial recognition.
I mean, it was like that very big New York Times in-depth reporting about data and how we've all sort of allowed all of these companies access to our innermost private data points of our lives and just trusted that they'll do the right thing with it. And I think that is just a very scary thought. We were so excited about the technology and how it improves our lives that it wasn't an afterthought until later we thought, oh, God.
Well, also facial recognition. You think about this in the age of the beginning of deep fakes. Once they've scanned all of our faces, they're going to be able, somebody's going to be able to make a perfect replica of Robert Frank saying, like, Brian, I do not wish to be on rapid fire
anymore. And it'll be much better than the real thing.
And it's going to be like the movie Ex Machina, by the way. It may end the same way.
It does feel like we're in a sci-fi movie talking about this facial recognition
but we're here.
and the regulation of it. I know, we are.
Courtney, thank you very much. Seema, thank you very much. Robert, thank you very much. Well, speaking of stopping to get a cup of coffee, shares of Luckin Coffee, they've been on a tear. And a top analyst says Luckin has got more room to run. He'll join us with what he sees as a massive untapped opportunity. Next.
When you look at the world,
this is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30-gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Sometimes in business, you have to take risks, but trading across borders and currencies shouldn't be one of them. With Western Union Business Solutions, we can help you manage the risk of doing business internationally. Our valuable experience, expert knowledge, and extensive global network makes us the ideal trusted partner for your business. And with our customer-focused support team, you'll receive a dedicated solution and personalized service. Visit westernunionbusiness.com. Western Union Business Solutions, a global financial network you can trust.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are, or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
All right, welcome back. There is a coffee battle brewing in China, and it looks like Luckin Coffee has a bit of a home field advantage. Right now, shares of the company are up 140% in the past 3 months, while Starbucks is seeing just single-digit returns. So what's been the company's secret recipe to success, and how long can it last? We're joined now by Eric Gonzalez. He's an analyst at KeyBank Capital Markets. Eric, good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Okay, so interesting day, by the way, for the call on Luckin because of the coronavirus. Obviously, anything related to China, the consumer, is down today. Do you have to reevaluate based on these headlines?
Well, look, I think these things tend to happen every few years in China. But one of the things we looked at was Yum China. If you go back to 2002, 2003, what you saw was a 2 to 3 week period of time where their same-store sales growth declined by 20 to 30%. But post that outbreak, in a very short period of time, you saw trends recover almost instantaneously. So while it was a very pronounced decline, you did see trends recover quite quickly.
So if this goes, hopefully, doesn't get to the level of SARS or the avian flu, if it progresses with what history suggests it might, we could see a 2 to 3 week period of weakness, concerns, people staying home. Then they get the all clear, and then it goes back to business as usual.
Well, that's just one major brand that had that issue back in 2003. Certainly we'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see and watch to see what happens over the next few months. But it's something we'll be watching.
So other people are the concern. Ironically, part of your bullish thesis on Luckin is this opportunity for unmanned stores.
Sure. Yep, absolutely. So there are plans to open up 10,000 express coffee machines and then another 100,000 more traditional vending machines. And if you think about this company's valuation in 2021, we believe they'll earn $1.80 in their core business, which is the 10,000 stores that they're going to have open between now and then. And so if you take $1.80, we think you can get another $1.50 or so in earnings just from these unmanned retail locations.
We did a piece with Eunice Yoon. She went to Starbucks at a Luckin, and Luckin was far cheaper. Is there definitely a home field advantage here, Eric?
Certainly, it is much cheaper because they have significant advantages in digital. They have 40 million users of their app, 12 or so million of those are active users. The average cost of a cup of coffee in China at a Luckin is about 11. This compares with 35 or so. It's at a Starbucks.
11 renminbi.
11 RMB.
So about $1.50 US dollars, roughly.
Correct. And at Starbucks, it'll cost you 30 to 35. And the reason is
it's like three or four times the price?
It's 3 times the price. That's the effective price, not the list price.
Why? I can understand 10% more, 20. Why is it 3x?
Well, it comes down to the digital advantage. So this company, as I said, has 40 million users of its mobile application. These users don't need to find, it's not the walk-by traffic. So whereas Starbucks might be on the high street where it's paying the expensive real estate, there's 10 people working in the store. Luckin stores are generally in the lobby of an office building where you can walk downstairs, you order it on your app, 100%.
Pick it up, go back up to your desk.
Go back up to your desk. Right. So they're not paying that high rent, and that's really where they get the advantage on price.
And you got an overweight and a $56 target, so some upside left for our viewers.
Absolutely.
On LK, Luckin Coffee. Eric Gonzalez, thank you.
Thank you so much.
The grounding of the 737 MAX has stretched into its 11th month and could cost the company twice what some analysts are estimating just how many billions Boeing might have to borrow. next.
The Exchange is now a podcast. Listen to your favorite parts of the show you might have missed. Sign up now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts.
Listen, we know you're not here for ads, but while you're waiting for the music, cybercriminals might be waiting for you to expose your login credentials and payment information over Wi-Fi. Help keep your online activity private with Norton 360. It gives you multiple layers of protection, including secure VPN with bank-grade encryption, device security, password manager, and PC cloud backup. Go to uk.norton.com to get all-in-one protection starting at $24.99 for your first year. Terms apply. That's uk.norton.com.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are, or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
The Sky Broadband sale ends soon. Get a massive 30% off superfast broadband and anytime calls. It's now just £25 a month for 18 months, so you can stream, share, play or tweet in the living room, bedroom, hey, any room you like. It's usually £37 a month, but now it's just £25 a month for 18 months plus $19.95 setup. So what are you waiting for? Offer ends 6th of Feb. Visit sky.com today. Sky Fibre network areas. Speeds vary by location. Prices may change during contract. Terms apply.
Having to deal with financial stuff can make you feel... Ah! But at Money Supermarket, we make you feel... Ah. That's because we go further to help you get money car. We don't just compare. We cut prices to help you get better car insurance deals. Get money car. Money Supermarket.
Welcome back. With the grounding of the 737 MAX now going on its 11th straight month, and it could cost Boeing far more than originally thought as the cost continues to rise. Leslie Joyce is joining us now with some breaking news on Boeing. We'll get to this debt story in a second. Leslie, I know you literally ran onto the set because you're still in call. It's all good. Chill. We're good. Yeah. You literally just broke a piece of news. What is it?
Yeah, so Boeing now is telling airlines they expect that this plane will not be back until the summer. That means that's when regulators will sign off on it. And if you'll remember, Boeing recently did an about face, and they said that they're going to have to require pilots to take simulator training. That will take several months. What this really means is that airlines are going to probably be one more summer, one more peak travel season without these planes.
Okay, is this Boeing saying summer, or is this the FAA saying summer? Because from what I understand, a CEO might have lost his job in part because he wouldn't stop talking about things that he shouldn't have been talking about, like return to service dates.
Right, and Boeing, of course, certainly now that after what happened with Muhlenberg losing his job after those estimates, and now we're in 2019, of course, the beginning of 2020, the end of 2019 didn't happen. Boeing is actually being pretty careful about this, and I don't think that they want to give a firm date, but they want to let their customers know that this is potentially going to be another summer that they won't have the plane ready for, kind of build in for any sort of curveballs that have
Leslie,
come up.
Is Boeing's, I know you came on to talk about the debt story, but this is breaking. So you broke it, by the way. Is this a situation where Boeing is saying it won't be until the summer, or they're saying it's going to be in the summer?
They're saying
'Cause there's a difference.
They're saying they don't expect regulators to sign off on it until the summer. And what signing
Best
off?
case.
I mean, they have to give some sort of estimate. They're not giving a firm date, and they saw how that bit them before, and I don't think that they're going to go ahead and do that. The airlines have, I think, a dozen or more times have pushed back that return to service. You have American, United, Southwest, the big MAX customers in the United States, already pushing back when these planes are going to be returning to their schedules in June. This is early June, so this can go on for the rest of the summer. And another thing to remember is that it gets worse as time goes on. There were only about 300 to 400 planes at the time of the grounding in March, which I can't believe it was a year ago.
Yep.
But they were supposed to receive more planes in these.
And by the way, they're
following
still
months.
sitting there, and Air Lease has come out. They're a big sort of aircraft leasing. They said you got to change the name. Nobody cares, but we've done these little polls on Twitter and stuff, and I've had about 50% of the audience, just my Twitter followers, say they would think twice about getting on a 737 MAX.
That's a challenge that the airlines.
I mean, no one's talking about what happens to the airlines when and if it returns to service. What happens if half the people booked on a flight say, I'm not getting on that plane? Now, United can send them away, or Southwest can send them away and risk ticking off customers. What happens if they want to be rebooked? This is a bigger problem from the airlines than people are talking.
They're thinking about that already, and Southwest has said that we're not going to force anybody to go on any aircraft. American's going to work with customers. United has said similarly. Even CEO Oscar Munoz said, like, we're not going to force anyone to go on a plane.
And so if you have a plane that's sold out, but half the people won't get on it, that's an unusable plane. You know what I mean? Like Southwest is going to return it to Boeing and say, people won't get on it. Give me my money back.
Well, it's not clear yet what travelers are going to be doing. We've never had a grounding like this in the era of social media. We've never had a hashtag unground or anything like that.
But
so
now the apps.
It remains to be seen.
Your apps show what kind of plane you're on.
Right. So
clear as day, 757, A320, whatever it is.
And I think they prefer people to do that before they book, and then instead of getting to the airport and telling the gate agent they don't want to go on there.
Okay, Leslie, thank you very much.
Thank
Great
you.
stuff. Breaking news on Boeing. All right, coming up, what digital media companies are doing that they have never, ever done. Stick around.
Hello, I'm your captain for today's Virgin Atlantic flight. Please drop everything and pay close attention to the following announcement. The sail is now on. Our crew are ready to take your bags and stresses away. The cocktails are ready to serve, the movies are loaded, and we're all set for takeoff to the Caribbean. So, take your seat in our award-winning economy class. We're ready to go when you are.
The Virgin Atlantic sail. Fly amazing for less. For more details, visit virginatlantic.com.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Be better informed, be better prepared. The Better Network is on TuneIn. This is Brent Musburger. Search BETR and start hanging out with me and my guys in the desert weekday afternoons. The Better Network is now on TuneIn.
Start hearing more of what you want.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations,
Live commercial-free news,
and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game.
Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie.
With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
Your big earnings of the evening is what else? Netflix, those numbers out after tonight's closing bell. And this will be the first quarter where we're going to see the impact of all the new streaming rivals that are out there. For more, we're joined by Sarah Fisher, media reporter at Axios, and our own Julia Borston. Julia, is Baby Yoda going to just crush Netflix when we see their numbers tonight?
Well, look, there are two stories for Netflix. Of course, there's the domestic story where growth has been slowing. We even saw U.S. user numbers decline, subscribers decline in the earnings reported this summer. So we expect the U.S. numbers to be much smaller than the international numbers. Internationally, Netflix is expected to continue to grow at about 7 million new subscribers. And I think that there's going to be much less of an impact globally because of the fact that Disney Plus has only really launched here in the U.S. and in a couple other markets. It doesn't launch in Western Europe until the end of March. So I think that there are going to be two different stories for Netflix. International growth as international subscribers are less valuable. Many of them pay less. And then here in the U.S., slowing growth. But it'll be interesting to see how the numbers play out because for the first time, Netflix is going to be breaking out the success of different regions. And instead of just reporting the U.S. numbers separately, they're going to be bundling together the U.S. and Canada.
All right, Sarah, I want to talk about something else because from what I understand, due to your fine reporting, some of these digitally native firms are actually, gasp, making money. Are we going to see profitability for the first time in the internet's history?
I think so. Look, you have a lot of big media companies that have struggled to hit profitability in the past. I'm talking about media companies like BuzzFeed, Vox Media, and Vice. These are companies that have gone under enormous pressure, big layoffs in order to finally hit profitability. Executives telling Axios that they're expecting to hit it in 2020. And to your point, we're starting to see some companies finally hit it last year in 2019. Those companies include some subscription media companies like The Information, as well as other more advertising-based companies like Business Insider and Axios and Politico.
Well, it seems like good news, Julia Borston. So I wonder, does that influence your beat? Does that make, could Netflix suddenly embrace the ad model? You're halfway through Stranger Things and an ad for deodorant just pops up out of the blue.
Well, look, there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of analysts saying that Netflix needs to embrace an ad model in order to offer a lower price subscription tier. Netflix has reiterated many times that they're not interested in getting into advertising. But I think what's interesting, Brian, is what Sarah was just saying about some of these digital media publishers. Many of them are not just doing traditional advertising. They also have subscription models. They also hold events, or they have podcasts, which is a whole new revenue stream in terms of advertising for podcasts. So I guess the question is not would Netflix embrace an advertising model, but would these digital media companies start to embrace a subscription model as well?
Yeah. Is Sarah, The Athletic and The Information, are they working? Are people paying their $20, $30, $50, a year or a month for these sort of sites to dig in a little deeper in their topic of choice? Is that working?
It's working. I mean, if you think about The Athletic, they say that they're very close to hitting 1 million subscribers worldwide. That's a huge number for a primarily text-based journalism product that's around a niche. It's around sports. And as far as The Information goes, that's been a highly successful business product, especially in Silicon Valley and especially on Wall Street. So I think another point, adding off of what Julia said, is, are you going to see these successful journalism outlets now start to produce such riveting content that maybe they could sell or license that content to Netflix? It really all comes full circle here. And the one example that comes to mind...
Sarah, I apologize cutting you off. We got 5 seconds left in the show. We'll get you back on. Julia, thank you very much. That does it for us on The Exchange. Power Lunch begins right now with special guest Marcus Lemonis of The Profit. Take it away.
Brian, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. I'm Tyler Matheson, and here is what's new at 2 for a Monday. Actually, it's a Tuesday. What am I thinking? The billionaires are out in force at the World Economic Forum in Davos. The legendary investor Paul Tudor Jones calling this stock market crazy. We've got those details. Plus, President Trump says the economy is in the midst of a blue-collar boom. and the U.S. consumer is roaring and soaring. Can the good times keep rolling on? And to weigh in on all of that and more, as Brian just mentioned, the prophet himself, Marcus Lemonis, is here in the studio for the hour, and he will join us in the questions and answers as Power Lunch begins right now.
Welcome to Power Lunch, everybody. I'm Contessa Brewer, and just admit it, you don't know which day it is either. After the markets were closed yesterday, it feels like a Monday. We've got stocks falling from record highs today. The Dow down triple digits. Well, we're off the lows of the day, right? We're at lows of the day right now, breaking that 5-day winning streak. Take a look now at Boeing. That stock is moving lower. As sources tell us, the aerospace company does not expect regulators to sign off on the 737 MAX until June or July. That's months later than previously anticipated. And with the markets at or near record highs seemingly every day, does it make stocks vulnerable to a pullback on any negative news? Is that what we're seeing today here? Bob Pisani at the New York Stock Exchange with more. Bob?
Well, we've got a little bit of a 1-2 punch here today. First, late in the day, we have the news about Boeing's planes, the 737 MAX, maybe not available until the summer. That hit us. And then, of course, we have these concerns where the CDC has confirmed the first case of the coronavirus in the United States. And there you see, there's Boeing moved to the downside, and the S&P 500 also losing some altitude late in the day on that as well here. There you see the move to the downside overall here. If you just take a look at some of the sectors here, a lot of this was China-related earlier in the day, so China stocks generally have been weaker. Metals and mining, emerging markets, banks weaker as yields move to the downside. Semiconductors are holding up well until the middle of the day. They too have now turned negative. Take a look at the ones that have hit the most. Airlines across the board, all around the world, having a tough day. Air China, Japan Airlines, of course, United, Delta here in the United States. Luxury goods, remember the Chinese New Year, of course, a lot of money being spent on the New Year, so some of the luxury goods like LVMH, Kering, which owns Gucci, Tapestry, all down 1, 2, some of them even down 3%. Finally, just want to make a note about some downgrades today. The market's very pricey right now. We're at the high end here. Some people have come out and downgraded some stocks. Morgan Stanley downgraded Citigroup on valuation. Nothing wrong with the fundamentals, just the prices are high. Bank of America also here to the downside, downgraded over Atlantic, also on valuation. So keep an eye on these high valuations. Just want to note, we got a couple of IPO announcements today. Important thing is it's starting to heat up this market for IPOs. Historic high in that one. Got a big one here with Reynolds Consumer announcing terms today. We're talking tinfoil, but that's a big one. Back to you guys.
All right, Robert, thank you very much. President Trump in Davos today declaring that we are in the midst of a blue-collar economic boom in the U.S.
Today, I'm proud to declare that the United States is in the midst of an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen before. We've regained our stride, rediscovered our spirit, and reawakened the powerful machinery of American enterprise.
And the president is not alone. Top CEOs echoing the president's confidence about the health of the economy and the consumer.
The backbone of this recovery, 11, 12 years in, has been the consumer. And when you look at what matters to the consumer, it's jobs, it's employment, strong, 30-year strong backdrop to that, and housing. Two most important things to a consumer.
If the U.S. consumer is in good shape, that usually bodes well for the rest of the U.S. economy just because that sheer volume. And we see about $3 trillion a year of spending go through our customers' accounts and just see that rise about 5% year over year plus.
Well, despite all this enthusiasm, the IMF says growth around the world will remain sluggish, and they are cutting their growth forecast overall for 2020. Let's bring in our guest host today, the prophet Marcus Lemonis. He's the CEO of Camping World and an investor in lots of businesses, small and large, around the country. Marcus, welcome. Good to see you.
I have to admit,
it's been too long.
It has been a while. I have to admit that I think that Trump is right about the blue-collar consumer. I think they are showing up, and they are showing up in a different way. If you look at truck sales or RV sales or boat sales, which is a world that I'm familiar with, they're clearly showing up and spending money. I don't know if it speaks to the overall health of the economy, but I think at least...
Why do they feel confident enough to come to one of your stores and plunk down or lease one of your big RVs, or not so big RVs?
Well, it isn't just the RVs that are being sold, right? You look at truck sales in America, and we had good auto sales in 2019, starting off 20 pretty well. I think the American consumer is convinced because they're also being told that the economy is good. And so I don't know that that blue-collar consumer necessarily has the same indexes that all of us have. Their 401k looks a little different. They're dabbling in the stock market, not as much. They don't necessarily have the same assessment of whether their house is worth more or less. But they're being told that the market is good, and they're being told that the economy is good.
But blue-collar wage growth has been better. It has picked up after languishing for years. And in fact, blue-collar wage growth is outpacing white-collar wage growth right now. Except you see this divergence where manufacturing blue-collar jobs are. Even though there's 500,000 manufacturing jobs open, that it is lagging blue-collar wage growth overall. Why? Why aren't we seeing more movement?
Well, I worry about the manufacturing jobs and that separation between there and the pay in that area, because that tells us a lot about where the economy is going. So if you're a Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 company today and you're planning out your capital expenditures for the next couple of years, machinery, equipment, things of that nature, if that isn't a very robust part of our economy, I worry about what that tells us. The canary is telling us about the coal mine that's coming.
What about the debt levels of people who are coming in and well, I don't know what that is. We'll find out. What about the debt levels that you're seeing? Are they manageable? Do they have too much debt? And what about businesses as you look at their debt levels?
So there's two specific issues. One, on the personal side, I get the chance to see a lot of credit profiles from blue-collar consumers all over America. And we're seeing them have less credit card debt than they had a couple of years ago. Their FICO scores are up, and their credit is actually, the amount of debt that they have out there is actually down. So that has actually surprised me. In terms of business debt, it's a little tough because you're talking about big business debt, right, has bonds and a number of other big indentures. Some of those are going to start to mature. On the small business side, it's still hard to get money. It's still hard.
We cover markets every day here, and we look at how the stock market is doing as an indication of how our overall economy is doing. Do you think that that's fair? Is it a good indication of where we're going? Are the markets right, that we've got more room to run?
Well, I think we have more room to run, but I don't know that most Americans look at the stock market as the tipping point for them. I don't know if that's the barometer. If you visit, a small rural town in America, which we'll cover in a little bit, I don't know that they're paying attention to the stock market. They're looking at what are the jobs that are available in their community and how are businesses doing in their community. And I think they're doing okay. And from my perspective, last year was a tough year. This year looks like a lot rosier of a year.
We're going to come back and talk a little bit more about this, about the stock market. And as you know, when you're here, you're a full member of you're at the adult table. You can ask questions, whatever you want to do. All right?
I feel like there's something coming.
No.
I know you. You're setting me up.
I just want to make sure that you know. We expect you to play ball at every turn. All right. The CDC now confirming one case of the coronavirus in the United States, and the Dow taking a hit intraday on that news. Meg Terrell joins us now with more on this developing story. This is fascinating, Meg.
Right, developing very quickly. As of this morning, we were just hearing about mounting case numbers in China and other nearby countries. More than 300 there and 6 confirmed deaths so far. Now, what we know is that this is a coronavirus similar to SARS or MERS, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome virus, which was more recent. However, people are still learning about what this looks like. And so far, 6 people dead among more than 300 infected. It is not as high a mortality rate as we have seen in those previous viruses.
There are some 3 billion trips planned in China right now because of the Lunar New Year, which lands on late Friday. When we look at how China is handling this, what are you seeing?
What we are hearing is that Wuhan City, which is where this is thought to have originated, is trying to control the movement of people into and out of the city. That can, of course, be difficult, and we know that it's already in other places now. And one of the newest developments is that it appears that this does spread between humans, and what people are trying to figure out is how easily does it spread from person to person. What we saw with SARS is that it spread more easily than MERS did. MERS did turn out to be more deadly. About a third of the people who got MERS died. SARS, fewer than 10% died who were infected with the virus. And so people are very interested to learn just how contagious this is, and they are still figuring that out. As of right now, here in the United States, we do have entry screening on 3 airports, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and here in New York at JFK. However, the confirmed case that we are seeing reports of from the CDC in the United States
is in Washington State, it appears. So did not come through one of those airports where we are doing screening. So we expect to hear more today. Tomorrow, the WHO is convening to determine whether this is an international concern. It's a public health emergency of international concern is the phrase. And it would just be the fifth one if declared such a thing ever.
Has anything changed with the government allowing people in and out of China? Have they embargoed people? Is anything that's happening there?
So far, we don't know. What we are hearing is that people think the response was not fast enough because it was thought that this just was related to animals, that people in this market, the seafood and animal market, were getting infected and that it didn't necessarily spread between people. So everybody's kind of saying the horses are out of the barn, they're playing catch up. We haven't heard, whether people are really being restrained from moving around in China other than what we heard about in Wuhan City.
All right, Meg, thank you very much. I'm sure you'll keep us posted.
We'll bring you more.
Appreciate it.
Coming up, more details on Boeing shares tumbling on new reports regarding the 737 MAX. And we're monitoring stocks as we trade at session lows. The Dow down, about 180 points now. Plus, earnings, one of the potential threats to this rally. Netflix reports after the bell its first quarter with Disney Plus as a competitor. We'll tell you what to watch for when Netflix reports. Stay with us here on Power Lunch.
Oh, your mom just texted. She's landed.
Take the helm and ignite your spirit of adventure with a Sunsail holiday. Relax on a skippered yacht from sunny St. Lucia to the nutmeg-scented shores of Grenada. Or take charge with a bareboat charter along Dubrovnik's glittering coastline. With up to 20% off selected destinations, now is the time to book your Sunsail adventure. Sunsail. See the world differently.
Boredom. Fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. 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 Mix it up. Skip. Run. Skip. Run. Give yourself a lift. Mix it up. Lift. Mix it up. Run. Lift. Splash. Skip. Lift. Run. It's crunch time. Skip. Mix it up. Run. Mix it out of boxing class. Skip. Run. Splash. Skip. Run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Mix it. Run.
Mix it.
Let's get this right, sir. You didn't see three men dressed as clowns take off in a van with a Renaissance painting because you were distracted by, and I quote, a sporty red compact SUV with a bold mesh grille, a sculpted bonnet with sweeping roofline on diamond-cut alloys.
And beautiful rear haunches.
So, you saw a Jaguar E-Pace. But what about the clowns?
What clowns?
Jaguar E-Pace, designed to steal attention. Search Jaguar E-Pace.
Dad, I'm doing the mashed potatoes too.
Do the Albert Bartlett potato mash.
Do the twist.
Do the patatas bravas with a British twist.
Yeah. Do the brown sauce, balsamic and chutney.
Oh, do the melting potato slices.
Do the dishes.
Grab a brand new recyclable bag today and do the Albert Bartlett.
He's got a brand new bag.
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
I read Stan. Will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, and try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Oh. Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
Welcome back, everyone. As you just saw at the bottom of your screen a moment ago, Boeing shares are halted right now after falling more than 5% on a new report that 737 MAX may not get FAA approval until June or July. CNBC.com airline reporter Leslie Josephs joins us now to discuss what is the nature of the report, where did it come from, how confident are we that this delay is fact?
Well, we've heard from sources, good sources, that Boeing now expects the FAA to sign off on these planes in June or July. And I think you'll remember that the airlines that fly the MAX in the United States, that's United, Southwest, and American, have all pulled the planes already until June. This could mean a further delay for them because they don't just take the planes out of storage and start flying them the next day. They're going to have to check them do safety checks. They're going to have to train their pilots. It's like a pretty lengthy process that before, even without simulator training, could take 30 to 45 days.
This has been a rolling deadline. I mean, in other words, we're going to have them back in the air by the end of the year. Oh, no, going to be January. Oh, no, going to be March. No, going to be June. Now we're talking deeper in the year. Why can't they get it together?
Well, there are some...
Boeing, really. Boeing and the FAA.
I don't think Boeing wants to put a firm date on this. And, of course, Dennis Muhlenberg lost his job last month because he kept saying these planes are going to be approved by the end of the year. And now we're sitting in the middle to end of January, and obviously that didn't happen. So Boeing is giving a rough idea to its airline customers and others, saying, just FYI, this is what we're expecting at this point. And they're probably better off surprising to the upside at this point than coming out and pushing the deadline back for another several months.
I have a question. Who's paying the financial lease payment or obligation payment on all these planes that have been grounded? Who's making that payment?
Well, Boeing, this is the issue with Boeing, and it's a cash issue, is that they're not getting paid. Generally, the manufacturers get paid on delivery. I mean, the airlines and other customers, lessors, will pay a small amount, not the majority of the cost before.
But those are for the ones being built. The ones that are already in circulation.
And now out of service.
Right. So they're in circulation. They're on my balance sheet. I have the financial obligation to pay for whatever the usage is. Who's toting the note during that period of time from the time they were shut down till the time they're opened up again? Does anybody know?
Well, that's why Boeing needs to pay the airlines. So they're essentially paying them back for lost revenue. These planes are going to be out of service for more than a year now since the grounding. And that's why Boeing in July of 2019 took this $5.6 billion pre-tax charge. We're expecting, what we're hearing from Wall Street analysts, another charge coming before they report earnings on the 29th.
Are they also in the process of raising $10 billion additional capital right now?
So we broke a story yesterday, saying that Boeing is now going to banks on Wall Street with pretty hefty commitments so far for $10 billion in additional cash.
So American, United, et cetera, they're all having the financing obligations of those planes being paid by Boeing. Is that a fact?
No, Boeing has reached a few agreements with the airlines, with Southwest and with American. The terms of those they didn't disclose. They gave a few details about what they're sharing with employees, and that's only for 2019. So Boeing has this sort of running tab open with all of these airlines, which is why investors are so keen on hearing about timing. They want to get a better sense of how much is this ultimately going to cost Boeing. And some of the analysts I've talked to, I heard an estimate as high as $20 billion.
What I've heard is that Boeing has been working to reimburse the airlines, but basically about operational losses. In other words, revenues that the companies can't bring in because the planes can't fly. But your question is about who's paying the lease payments on those planes to the extent that they're not owned by the airlines
themselves. Or the cost of capital that's tied up and not performing for them. So from my perspective, if we broke it down to just a car, I would have a lemon law. I'd give you the car back and the manufacturer would buy it back. I don't think that's happening in this case.
No.
And they're going to have to pay back. I mean, they're going to have a very big bill from this. And again, the tab is still open.
Leslie, thank you for bringing us that story. That move lower in Boeing, along with concerns of the coronavirus spreading, weighing on the market. The Dow down near session lows now, dropping from record highs. How worried should investors be? And is this market looking just for any excuse to sell off? Let's bring in Jeff Mills, Chief Investment Officer with Bryn Mawr Trust, and Brian Belsky, Chief Investment Strategist with BMO Capital Markets. It's great to see you guys. All right, so first of all, these are the unknown unknowns that we've been talking about from the beginning of the year, what you can't plan for. Jeff, how concerned are you?
Yeah, look, I mean, the market's not down that much. If you look at the S&P, you're talking about maybe 20 basis points. And the fact of the matter is you can point to any number of measures that might make investors feel like the market's primed for a pullback. So you look at the options market, the put-call ratio is low. I think some 87% of stocks are above their 200-day moving average. So you can point to those numbers. But I was just with clients this morning, and the fact is the next correction is always right around the corner. If you look back over the last 40 years, the average correction somewhere around 12%. We've only finished negative on the year 7 times. So I think for most investors, for our clients, for most people watching this show, you shouldn't really be trading for the next, 10 to 15% correction in the midst of what we believe is a bull market. If you think about sentiment also, just quickly, people are trying to make an analogy between now and the beginning of 2018, where we saw that big run up and sell off. I don't think the euphoria is the same. If you look at the largest stocks in the Russell 1000, there were 60% of those stocks were 2 standard deviations above their 200-day in the beginning of 2018. That percentage is below 20% today. Credit's still stable, so I don't think we're in the same environment. Sure, the market could wobble a little bit here, but I think what we're seeing right now with this Boeing news and the news about the virus in China is, it's not as primed as many people might think, because we're only down about 20 basis points.
Brian, it seems to me like the headlines drive a lot of action right away. I mean, we talk a lot about that FOMO, fear of missing out. How much of that comes into play here, and how much of what we're seeing today is fear of taking it on the chin?
Well, I think, again, Jeff was bang on in terms of what's happening on a technical perspective. But the bottom line is, from an investor perspective, you should buy and sell stocks on fundamentals. In the fundamental construct, the United States stock market hasn't changed the last few hours. We believe that stocks are going to be higher a year from now than they are today. Fundamentals drive stocks. And yes, again, stocks are rarely linear for long. Gravity will win at some point. But if you're trying to time the market and buy or sell today, that's not the right way to invest. Now, again, from a fundamental perspective, I think most investors are missing a couple points. Number one, earnings have clearly troughed, and we're going to be seeing a recovery in the next 2 to 3 quarters. Number two, from an allocation standpoint, portfolio managers massively underperformed, including a couple that CNBC has been talking about all day long, Mr. Dahlia and Mr. Tudor. They underperformed dramatically last year. And oh, by the way, dramatically underperformed the last 5 years. And now we're starting to see people pile into the market because they've underperformed. Again, that's not fundamental, but then again, that's more human nature. Do we think that's a near-term problem? Yes, we do. Do we think the bull market has 10 more years to go? Yes, we do.
I guess I want to go back to, Jeff, if you don't mind. I want to get a clarification on something you said. Did you say that you don't recommend people trade right now? Did I hear that?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I think, look, for most of our clients who have to think about taxes, number one, and then also if you're talking about a 10 or 15% drawdown, to be able to get in and get out just at the right time, I think ultimately if you think the market's going to be higher 12 months from now, like I do, it probably doesn't make sense to be trading this market.
Well, I also heard Brian say that he thought that the earnings had troughed. Is that right, Brian?
It is.
Where did you get that from?
We get that from, number one, the secular trend. You got to remember the last 10 years that companies in America have underpromised and overdelivered. If you take a look at revisions heading into earnings revisions on the next year out number, they bottom and are beginning to recover. Number two, the economy clearly is in very good shape, and we think that's going to continue to drive things. And oh, by the way, too, once we get this phase 2 deal done, the USMCA is done, I think we're going to see the semblance of some sort of CapEx for the first time in 20 years in our country. And that will also help levitate some earnings expectations that we think are still too low.
So since we've got a real-world business person here, your company's stock had troughed and has come back very nicely over the past 3-4 months, right?
It has.
How about your business? What is the earnings arc look like there?
Now, you know me that I'm not going to talk about that, but what I will talk about is the trough and the peaks and all these different movements in stocks are also attributable to the decisions that we make as business leaders. And I made a bad decision, which took my company down, reversed that decision.
What was it?
I decided to get into a retail space that I probably shouldn't have gotten into. Early course correction, and you see the rebound. But when we talk about the actual earnings improving in 2020, we're making the assumption that the consumer has also returned to a regular spending pattern in lots of different areas, and that CapEx, as he pointed out, is going to continue to get stronger. I'm not sure where people are gathering that information from, because I do think there's companies starting to build their balance sheets with cash and not have everything just leave.
All right, final question, Brian, if I might. You said earlier, and I agree with you on principle, that timing the market is a bad idea. But is there a place in a market like this for dynamic rebalancing of your portfolio if you did so well in 2019 and in this first month of 2020 that now your equity portion is higher than you want it to be?
Well, I think a great way to provide income for your portfolio, quite frankly, Tyler, is dividend growth in terms of equities. And equity income, I think, is a discipline that dramatically outperformed last year. But when you take a look at private client money in North America, it's still woefully underweight in the value category, in the dividend growth category. So I think those areas that has seen dramatic upside, like a lot of the growth stocks last year, we could see some rotation back into the equity income sleeve and provide income for those customers and clients that need that.
So don't necessarily move out of stocks, but maybe change the kind of stocks you own.
I would definitely do that. And remember, too, sometimes in life we make binary decisions, either buy or sell, growth or value. I think most people are not as diversified as they should be in terms of equity income and value in particular.
Right. All right, Brian Belsky, Jeff Mills, gentlemen, thank you. Appreciate that.
Coming up, we will continue to watch the markets as stocks are trading near session lows. Shares of Boeing, they are still halted on that news that perhaps the 737 MAX won't get cleared for takeoff until July. Costco shares up nearly 50% in the past year. One analyst says the stock is still undervalued, and our traders will weigh in on that.
You leave it to me. I'll get your taxes in an okay place.
Take the helm and ignite your spirit of adventure with a Sunsail holiday. Relax on a skippered yacht from sunny St. Lucia to the nutmeg-scented shores of Grenada. Or take charge with a bareboat charter along Dubrovnik's glittering coastline. With up to 20% off selected destinations, now is the time to book your Sunsail adventure. Sunsail. See the world differently. Boredom. Fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Run. Skip. Run. Give yourself a lift. Mix it up. Lift. Mix it up. Run. Lift. Splash. Skip. Lift. Run. It's crunch time. Skip. Mix it up. Run. Mix it. Add a boxing class. Skip. Run. Splash. Skip. Run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Mix it. Run.
Mix it. Let's get this right, sir. You didn't see three men dressed as clowns take off in a van with a Renaissance painting because you were distracted by, and I quote, a sporty red compact SUV with a bold mesh grille, a sculpted bonnet with sweeping roofline on diamond-cut alloys.
And beautiful rear haunches.
So, you saw a Jaguar E-Pace. But what about the clowns?
What clowns?
Jaguar E-Pace, designed to steal attention. Search Jaguar E-Pace.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, keep me out the cold jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, East London jobs, West London jobs, extra hour in bed jobs, startup jobs, late start jobs, get home in the daylight jobs, banking jobs, building jobs, flexible working on a Friday jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30 gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
And welcome back, everybody, to Power Lunch. The Senate impeachment trial beginning just a short time ago. Elon Moy has the latest from Capitol Hill. Hi, Elon.
Well, Tyler, the timeline for President Trump's impeachment trial is already shifting. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell now saying that each side will receive 3 days to deliver their opening arguments, and that's instead of just 2 marathon sessions for those arguments. Now, that means that this trial will last at least through the end of next week. It also shows that McConnell is under pressure from moderates within his own party to make sure that both sides are heard. The president's defense team is speaking right now on the Senate floor, and they argue that it doesn't matter how long this trial takes, the outcome will be the same, and the president will be acquitted. Back over to you.
Once you hear those initial presentations, the only conclusion will be that the president has done absolutely nothing wrong, and that these articles of impeachment do not begin to approach the standard required by the Constitution.
Now, the White House can still move to dismiss this trial entirely. They have until 9 a.m. tomorrow to do so, but it's unlikely that there will be the support in the Senate in order to make that happen. Guys?
All right, Elon, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And now let's go over to Seema Modi for Trading Nation. Seema.
Hello, Tyler. And we have got our eye on retail today. Costco shares trading higher after Oppenheimer gave it a valuation-based upgrade to outperform. But the rest of the big box retailers are trading all over the place. Costco rallying alongside Home Depot this month, while Walmart and Target tumble into the red. So which is the best big box bet? Nancy Tengler of Laffer Tengler Investments and Ari Wald, Oppenheimer technician, and colleagues with the analyst behind the Costco call, joining me now. So, Ari, the chart, what do you make of Costco?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Rupesh Parikh's upgrade of Costco. He's such a good fundamental analyst because he likes companies with good technicals on top of it as well. Yeah, listen, I got a chart of Costco relative to the S&P 500. Great run of outperformance in 2019, got to a very extended condition in September. Since September, it's corrected back to its 200-day average. It's worked off those overbought excesses, maintained the uptrend, now starting to inflect higher again. We think that long-term run of outperformance is just getting started again.
Nancy, what do you make of Costco and the threat of Amazon?
Yeah, well, so we were net sellers and all the way out by the end of the year last year. It's too expensive for our blood at 36 times. And with all due respect, because I do have a great deal of respect for Ari, I think that this is a little bit late. It feels a lot like the analysts piling on with upgrades right before Apple hit a peak in 2012. It's just a stretched valuation from our standpoint. And yet they have done a good job in e-commerce against Amazon. We like Home Depot a lot better. They've also done a good job on the e-commerce side. Got a yield that's 2.3 and dividend growth of 24%. So we are big owners of Home Depot and sold out of our Costco last year.
Yeah, and to your point, Costco already up 46% in the past year. We'll leave the conversation
there. We'll get Nancy to love some momentum by 12 months from now. We'll see.
There we go. Ari and Nancy, thank you for joining us. And catch Jim Cramer's interview with the CEO of Costco on Mad Money tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern. For more Trading Nation, head to our website or follow us on Twitter at tradingnation.com. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Seema. Ahead on Power Lunch, stocks at the lows of the day. Fears of the coronavirus spreading in China. Shares of Boeing are halted. We're all over two big stories rocking the markets. We'll have much more right after this break.
And now, the latest from tradingnation.cnbc.com and a word from our sponsor.
Every trader should accept that losses are part of the process. So in an effort to reduce your risk and to find your max loss, consider using stop or trailing stop orders. This approach can help eliminate emotion from your decision-making and set you on the path to consistent trading. I'm Joanna Payne, and Schwab is the better place for traders.
You know that tech stock we talked about?
Boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Mix it up, skip, run, skip, run. Give yourself a lift, mix it up, lift, mix it up, run, lift, splash, skip, lift, run. It's crunch time, skip, mix it up, run, mix it out of boxing class. Skip, run, splash, skip, run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run, mix it up, skip. Run.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30 gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night. And somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here. Testing mattresses in the Witch Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Chilly January days in London are tough enough without a broken boiler. Keep your home warm and working this winter with 2 years interest-free credit and your boiler installed by one of our expert engineers. Plus, you'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty. And we can even quote by video call after work or on weekends. Get a quote by the 29th of February, and you can also get £200 off a new boiler, or £400 off for our existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Sue Herrera. Here's your CNBC News update at this hour. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau again calling on Iran to release the flight recorders for the Ukrainian passenger plane that Iran shot down last month, killing all 176 people on board, including scores of Canadians.
We recognize that the black boxes are key to the investigation, and there are rules around making sure that they are analyzed quickly and properly in cases such as these that cannot be done in Iran.
Huawei Chief Financial Officer Meng Wanzhou arriving at the Vancouver courthouse for the second day of an extradition hearing to determine whether she will be sent to the U.S. to face fraud charges. The U.S. accusing Huawei of using a Hong Kong shell company to sell equipment to Iran in violation of U.S. sanctions. And Wallet Hub is out with a list of the best and worst states for driving. Using 31 key metrics such as traffic and infrastructure, Iowa snagged the top spot as the best state to drive in. Hawaii was ranked the worst. You're up to date. That's
really?
the news update this hour.
No. Hawaii is the best place to drive, if only because everywhere it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So come on, you're sitting in traffic, but you're in Hawaii.
No, it's the state of the roads. When you get out of the populated areas, a lot of them are not paved. They're not. The infrastructure is terrible.
If you could say
in the
the
resort
same about
areas,
the
it's great.
Expressway. Really?
Well, you could. That's true.
And the view's not as pretty. You have potholes in Hawaii, or the road is half paved.
So
who cares? You're in Hawaii.
Yeah,
It's
you're
almost
happy
better
with
that
the
way. It's almost better that way.
Almost better. All right, folks. Thank you, Sue. Let's talk about stocks. They are sitting near lows of the day. The Dow down nearly 200 points. Let's take a look there. It is down 185 right now. Both concerns over the coronavirus and Boeing, those are the items that are weighing on the markets right now. Boeing shares actually halted, reported it may take regulators months longer now to approve the 737 MAX, and that took that stock down more than 5%. And of course, Boeing is a Dow component. And we're just getting a statement from Boeing saying we are, quote, informing our customers and suppliers that we are currently estimating that the ungrounding of the 737 MAX will begin during mid-2020. Bob Pisani is at the Boeing Post at the New York Stock Exchange with more. Hi, Bob.
And we're right here. And of course, the stock was halted a little over 25 minutes ago. You can see it was already down 5.5%. And of course, the news was from CNBC that we did not expect, or Boeing did not expect the 737 MAX to return until June or July. As you heard, the company is now confirming essentially exactly what CNBC was talking about earlier. So where we are right now is the company itself has obviously sent a statement to the stock exchange to halt for news pending. Once the exchange is satisfied that all of the news is out, a notice will be sent down onto the floor here, and here's the trader in the stock, the DMM as we call them. They will then be able to release the stock. You'll get indications of where the open might be. You'll start seeing a lot more people showing up, and I expect that to happen in just a few minutes. But again, because of our reporting, the stock was down rather significantly. And guys, 18 points, that's 140 points on the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So Boeing is a significant drag in addition to the news out of China. Be right back as soon as we get indications and when the stock may reopen. Guys, back to you.
All right, we'll wait for that, Bob. Thank you for keeping us informed about it. In the meantime, let's bring in Sheila Kahyaoglu, who's an analyst at Jefferies covering Boeing. This statement that we just got, Sheila, goes on to say that this accounts for the rigorous scrutiny that regulatory authorities are rightly applying at every step. But haven't they been applying the regulatory scrutiny? Like, what was the anticipation from the analysts about when this plane was going to be free and clear to return to the skies?
So our estimates had forecasted a return to service in April and a production restart in October, which I think is probably what drove the stock down today, in addition to CNBC reporting, of course, is that this aircraft might not get recertified and back in the air until mid-2020, because that also has implications for the rest of the supply chain. So that's a lot later than folks anticipated.
Why would the delay of the ungrounding affect the production going back into circulation in October?
So that's a good question. One thing to be mindful of is there's 400 aircraft currently in inventory, because remember, the supply chain was still producing at 42 a month, even though the aircraft was grounded in March. So for 9 months, the supply chain manufactured this aircraft. And I think the focus item here is going to be to get those aircraft that are currently sitting on the ground off to customers sooner rather than restart production. So a mid-2020 return to service means you get more of a delay on the production restart as well.
One more question, Sheila. How do we know what kind of backlog Boeing has for the 737s? And more importantly, for those that had placed the orders prior to the issue, do they have a right to cancel that order or modify their order?
So the backlog right now currently stands at 4,900 orders or thereabouts. What's interesting, with the exception of Fly Dubai that had a modest change, you haven't really seen any customers change their orders. And that's because Airbus is sold out on its competing aircraft, the A320, until 2024. So customers haven't had much leeway, even though the down payment, if you're expecting an aircraft in 2022 might have been minimal, you still didn't change that order because you have nowhere else to go at the moment.
Sheila, we reported on the settlements that were made with Southwest and American Airlines regarding the 2019 charges. I would think this is going to add significantly to the charges that the airlines are going back to Boeing with.
So I think it'll depend for every airline what their concession package looks like. But what we backed into with Southwest and American is about $10 million per aircraft, and the list price is around maybe $100 million. So the concessions that Boeing has reported, the charges it took in July, where it was a pre-tax charge of $5.6 billion, assuming about a 6-month delay. So you could at least double that charge from here.
Do you know whether there's insurance coverage for any of this?
So there is coverage, but I think the coverage on the concessions, that's why Boeing is taking those charges, is because there'll be some form of repayment back, whether that's on the aircraft or whether that's on a service agreement. It'll vary depending on the customer.
Ask that question about the leases.
Well, I think my other question really is, are they writing checks back to these companies, or are they just discounting future orders? Because I want to know how the cash is actually flowing. Are you literally writing me a check back because I lost revenue? Or if I have one of the 4,900 orders out there, are you discounting that amount?
So it'll depend. It varies by customer. If you're a Southwest and you're a big customer, I'm sure you have a more favorable settlement than others that might have an aircraft in 2022 and it's not impacting your capacity or current airline schedules at all. So again, I think the biggest customers have obviously been the most impacted. Southwest is 280 of these on order, so clearly they'll see a different form of payback.
Fascinating, because the last thing companies want to do is write checks usually to somebody else, so they could discount or barter against the upcoming order. Final question is the one that Marcus asked in our last segment. We didn't really know the answer. Are the airlines on the hook to the leasing companies that sometimes own those planes for the lease payments, even though the planes aren't flying? And then do the airlines come back to Boeing and make that part of their settlement deal with Boeing?
So, when you look at an airline, they're the official customer of the aircraft, and the lease lessor is the customer. The airline is the operator. Mm-hmm. So the lessor will be the recipient of those concessions, and they could sort it out with their own customer base.
So the lessor would go.
That's why we've seen some outspoken comments from some of the lessors recently about name changes, because they are in fact the customer.
The lessor would come back to Boeing and say, "Here."
But what rights do they have to do that?
Because they are, in fact, the customer who's putting down the down payment.
But the ones that are already in circulation, I'm sorry to continue this, but the ones that are already in circulation, if I'm United Airlines and I have 14 or 15 in a hangar and I can't fly them, but I still have a payment that's due every Friday or every Monday, whatever it may be, who's making that payment? And if I'm making that payment, who's giving me my money back?
So, I think of the 370-odd aircraft that are currently grounded at the moment, I don't want, as Boeing has not emphasized what the concessions exactly look like, I'm sure if they have a cash obligation, Boeing is refunding them for it. The ones that are in 2022 and beyond, I'm sure they have a different, sort of pricing agreement with Boeing.
Sure. Right.
Okay.
Sheila, thanks very much. We appreciate it. Power Lunch will be right back.
1 in 5 Americans have left.
Boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Run, run. Mix it up, skip, run, skip, run. Give yourself a lift. Mix it up, lift. Mix it up, run, lift, splash, skip, lift, run. It's crunch time. Skip, mix it up, run. Mix it out of boxing class. Skip, run, splash, skip, run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing until March. T's and C's apply. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Mix it. Run.
Mix it. Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in, touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
Go courtside with the NBA on TuneIn. With the NBA on TuneIn, hear your favorite team and players take on their biggest rivals during the biggest games throughout the year, including regular season showdowns, the 2020 All-Star Game, and the NBA Finals in June, featuring the home and away calls for all 30 teams. Plus, with the NBA on demand, relive the best moments of the season by listening to the past games in their entirety. Listen to the NBA all season long on TuneIn.
Tonight at 10 p.m. right here on CNBC will premiere in a special episode of The Prophet. Marcus takes us to a small town on the Mississippi, Grafton, ravaged by one of the worst floods in the area that area has seen in 25 years. And he shows us how the town rebounds and recovers.
This is a crisis.
What makes it a crisis or not a crisis? Level of water?
Level of water. The business is affected. They're 80% off on their revenues from last year, or 100%, as in the case with some of them that haven't even been able to open.
And they make their acorns right now.
Right now, yep.
Grafton's economy relies heavily on tourism.
Can some of them not make it?
I would guess as much. I've had those calls that express if they don't get some sort of assistance, they will go belly up.
This is a business right here?
This is a business.
What was it, barbecue joint?
Yeah, it's a biker bar, and it's packed on the weekends.
And that's an incredibly... Oh, do we want to...
Yeah, we're gonna. Sorry to interrupt you. Shares of Boeing have reopened after being halted. It was down more than 5%. Boeing saying expects the ungrounding of the 737 MAX now to happen in mid-2020. Let's go to Bob Pisani.
Well, we've reopened and fairly quickly. So remember, just about 5 minutes ago, the company essentially came out and confirmed what CNBC had been reporting earlier, that the 737 MAX would not be available until the summer. And the stock was essentially down 5.5% when it's halted. You can see now it's reopened. Not recovered much, down 4.9%. And what that tells you is essentially the markets absorbed the information, and the information the company has provided has not added anything more than what investors were thinking prior to that, to the news that CNBC announced. So essentially here, and I want to just point out, 17 points here, you're dealing with 130 points or so in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. That's quite a significant drop, and one of the reasons, the main reason, the Dow underperforming the S&P 500. Guys, back to you.
Robert, thank you very much. We appreciate that. We'll keep watching Boeing. Are we going to stay right here? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three, it's up and in!
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
10 years ago, the book The New Jim Crow helped ignite a movement against mass incarceration. This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, I'll talk with the author, Michelle Alexander.
Millions of people have been relegated to a permanent second-class status. It wasn't a message people were eager to hear, but I think it is today easier to see.
Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour on TuneIn today.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
And welcome back. Let's take a look at Boeing shares. They have just reopened in the past 5 minutes or so after the company said it does not expect to unground the 737 MAX until mid-2020. Shares not recovering very much. The stock is still down about 4%. It was down 5 plus a few moments ago.
All right, back to the story of Grafton, Illinois, and the flooding that it experienced last year. Mayor Rick Eberlin, the mayor of Grafton, joins us now. Mayor, I watched the episode of The Prophet where Marcus comes in and talks to you. I just want to ask you, is it a ground shift for you to think of your town the way business owners think about running their businesses?
Yeah, it's definitely, a unique situation that we are in. I have to look at the town from a business perspective and then also, from the homeowner's perspective. But the business, and what runs our town is the tourism. And so that's what makes us go.
The flooding that you experienced was long-lived. It was devastating financially and emotionally as well, and we see a lot of that in this episode. Are you experiencing some of what towns from coast to coast experience when industries leave, when they're crippled by opioid addictions, that suddenly you're having to deal with an existential crisis?
Well, without a doubt, there was tremendous emotion, not only, for myself, but the many volunteers, the residents, business owners, and we do share similar plights as other communities, across the United States that, it's just the facts of where we live. And unfortunately, it's all too common, this day and age where it happens again and again and again.
Hey, Mayor, it's me. You remember?
Yeah. How you doing, Marcus?
How you doing, buddy? Listen, remember what we want to do going forward is be enthusiastic about how amazing the town is, right? And I think it's important for people to see that the American communities that we live in today can rebuild themselves. And I want to compliment you in front of everybody and everybody else that lives in that town for picking yourself up off the ground and doing it yourself, not waiting for the state government, the federal government, anybody to come solve your problems. And I don't know how business is today, but I got a text last night that said it's okay.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that, Marcus. It was through not only myself, but the efforts of others, collectively. There's a lot of people that work together to have us rebound, as fast as what we did. And we're doing well. We're doing quite well, as a matter of fact.
Mayor, thank you so much for joining us. We're glad to hear it. The episode airs tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. And Marcus, it was really great to see you get in there. You got your hands dirty.
I did. But I made a friend for life with the mayor. Been amazing.
Check Please is next. And don't forget, you can always watch or listen to us live on the go on the CNBC app. We'll be right back.
New York State. I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night, and somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here, testing mattresses in the Witch Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Witch tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit witch.co.uk.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
You want to turn that tap off, don't you? That's because we all know that wasting isn't smart. And yet, as a nation, we waste electricity every day without knowing it because our energy system is outdated. Smart meters not only help us stop wasting energy at home, they'll also help build a more efficient energy system so we can reduce waste across the nation. From the campaign for a smarter Britain.
Consumer action required for personal savings.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Well, Boeing is down a lot. It is reopened after the company announced that it does not expect to have its 737 MAXs flying until mid-2020. That is now the goalpost, and that goalpost has been changing. Boeing down 5%. But that's nothing compared to the stocks you've been watching.
Yeah, look at this. You've got Melco Resorts, which is Hong Kong-based, down almost 10%. Wynn Resorts off by 7%. Las Vegas Sands at MGM Resorts almost 6% off, all thanks to that coronavirus and the scares that the Lunar New Year is going to get hit particularly hard as people cancel plans because of that.
I'm looking across the way. Win, the worst performer in the S&P 500, and UAL not far
Guys,
behind
fundamentals. Stick with them.
Mr. Lemonis, great to have you with us. Always good to see you. Watch the episode tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.
Welcome to the Closing Bell, everyone. I'm Wilfred Frost. I'm here at the Boeing Post today. The stock was halted. It's now trading again after the company pushed back expectations of when the 737 MAX will fly to the summer. It is down 5% as we stand. Lots more details on that coming up.
And I'm Sarah Eisen here at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, where President Trump set the tone early, talking about America's economic achievements. Coming up, huge interviews for you, including a conversation with the CEO of the world's largest food and beverage company, Nestle.
Welcome back to Sarah. I'm Morgan Brennan. Let's look at what's driving the action today. That news on Boeing and the 737 MAX delay is shaving about 100 points off the Dow right now. Concerns about the China coronavirus are pressuring emerging markets and China-related stocks. But software stocks did help the NASDAQ hit an intraday all-time high earlier. Joining us for the hour is Steve Weiss, founder of Short Hills Capital Partners. Steve, great to have you.
Thank you.
We've certainly seen the major averages take a leg lower between this first confirmed case of the coronavirus here in the U.S. and then also this news from Boeing pushing out its forecast for return to service to the summer. You still invested in Boeing?
So I'd said on the halftime report, I think on Thursday, I sold just all but a tag into my position that morning. Then the news hit later in the day. And now we get a statement. And I was looking at selling the rest this morning because it's a nuisance, and you hate being reminded that you're losing money. And every time I look at my positions, I'm reminded of that. And I figure that if the stock, when the MAX goes back, the stock, maybe I'll miss the first 10%, but I won't have to deal with between then, and it's using a lot of capital. But here's the statement from the company. I'll just read you the first few words. As we have emphasized, the FAA and other global regulators will determine when the 737 MAX returns to service. That's an I told you so statement, as we have emphasized. They're in no position to be that arrogant. Now, you've got a new CEO there who I maintain is part of the old CEO group because he was on the board for 10 years, and he sat next to the old CEO, right, to Dennis, when he went on the apology tour and said, we're going to get approval in December. So they further lost credibility. So why you'd want to own the stock here when they're going out trying to buy $10 billion, which may be more, that's an issue. Now, the fact that they won't relaunch until the middle of the year is not that big an issue. We've had airlines come out and say, we're going back to June 7th. Presumably, those airlines went to Boeing and said, do you think June 7th is a safe date? And just last week, they told them yes. So what changed in that time period? So you think, again, this would be a management team that would be particularly sensitive to timing and to misleading the street, yet they did so again.
And confidence clearly is not there that this will be the final delay with a 5% or so move in the stock price to the downside. Much more on that coming up. And of course, it is weighing more broadly on the Dow in particular, which is down 140 points with 57 minutes left of the session. Let's dive in on the big stories we're watching today. Meg Terrell is breaking down the new virus out of China that spooked markets. Leslie Joseph has more on Boeing's drop today. And Mike Santoli has his market dashboard. But let's start with the tumble in the Chinese market as new fears of the coronavirus grow. Meg Terrell has some breaking news from the CDC. Meg.
Hey, well, the CDC has confirmed the first patient in the U.S. diagnosed with this novel coronavirus, a man in Washington state who recently returned from Wuhan, China, where this outbreak has been going on since last month. He returned on January 15th, and authorities have not yet detailed which flights he took and say they are working on those details now. He arrived before the CDC implemented entry screening at 3 U.S. airports, San Francisco, LAX, and New York's JFK. Now, the agency says it's now expanding that screening to Atlanta and Chicago as well. Authorities say they're still learning about this virus, including, importantly, how well it spreads between people. There are indications, CDC says, that limited person-to-person spreading is happening. There have been more than 300 cases reported in China, with a few others in nearby countries, and 6 confirmed deaths. And it is in the same family, guys, as viruses like SARS and MERS. Back to you.
So, Meg, it begs the question, are there companies that are working on vaccines that could actually help alleviate this virus?
Morgan, that's a great question. And amazingly, even though this has only really been going on since last month, there is already work going on. At the NIH, there is work on a vaccine. And at companies like Regeneron, they confirmed to me today that they are at work on a potential treatment for this virus, which is different from a vaccine. And with Ebola, they were able to get it through the early stages of development in just 6 months. So work is going on very quickly, but this will take time, guys.
Meg, thanks so much for that. Joining us now on the phone, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, former FDA commissioner. Dr. Gottlieb, thanks so much for joining us. I guess, first of all, your general take on what we know about this virus so far and how concerned we should be.
Well, look, it's concerning. Coronavirus generally isn't that virulent, but whenever you see a new virus starting to be spread in a human-to-human population, you're concerned about it because people haven't been previously exposed to it, so people could get quite ill. Typically, a coronavirus should be something that's self-limiting. It would be more serious in the young or the old or the infirmed, but this is a new virus. We don't have a lot of experience with it. And the question is there sustained human-to-human spread right now, and has it achieved this sort of sweet spot where it's virulent enough that it could cause significant illness, but it's not so virulent, not so serious that it doesn't achieve sustained spread because people are just too sick to transmit it?
Yeah, Dr. Gottlieb, I think the fact that it's being compared, or at least it's a virus that in some ways is similar to SARS, which takes us back to 2003 when China was essentially covering up that outbreak, at least initially, and you had 800 deaths due to it. How similar is this? How different is it? How would you rate so far the reaction from the Chinese and from officials in other countries as they respond to it?
Well, based on the sequence, it has about a 70% overlap with SARS, but it doesn't appear to be as significant in terms of the illness that it causes as SARS based on what we know about it so far. But it does seem to be spreading more rapidly. SARS never achieved sustained human-to-human transmission. This might have already achieved that. And remember, we're seeing the more serious cases present, people who get hospitalized or present with serious illness. It's quite likely that there's a lot of mild to moderate cases that just aren't presenting. So the 300 cases that have been reported so far probably don't represent the total number of people who have been infected. As for the Chinese, they published the sequence very early in the course of uncovering this, and they made it available to researchers around the world. But as best I can tell, they haven't made samples of the virus available, and that's something that could be important to trying to develop a screening tool to validate a screening test, which the CDC seems to have available now based on the sequence. They were able to develop a screening test. But in order to validate that, you want to have the actual viral samples. You also want the viral samples in order to do animal experiments. We seem to have gotten those samples now, but as best I can tell, the Chinese didn't make those available very early, if they made them available at all. And that probably hampered some of the response efforts.
And now that we do have them, or even before then, do you feel like we have the tools to address and cure the cases when we see them? As the CDC has confirmed, there is already, of course, one in the U.S., maybe more to come.
Well, I think we certainly have the tools and the capability to do effective screening, to know when this is being transmitted and when people are becoming ill with this virus. Whether or not we can contain it's going to depend on how contagious it is, quite frankly. It seems to be contagious. It seems to be spreading human to human at this point. Coronaviruses can be very contagious. Now, typically coronaviruses only infect animals. There's 7 known strains that actually have made the jump to infect humans, and some of them are able to sustain, rapid spread or sustained spread in humans. Whether or not this is one of them, we don't know right now. It does appear to be spreading human to human at this point. Early on, the reports were it was just spreading animal to human, but that doesn't seem to be the case right now.
So lastly, Dr. Gottlieb, what can folks, especially folks are going to be traveling abroad in the coming days, coming weeks, do to help mitigate the risk or prevent perhaps coming in contact with this virus?
Well, I mean, the question is how concerned should we be if this virus does spread? Remember, we had the swine flu spread pretty widely. That was serious. A lot of people became very seriously ill, but, it worked its way through the population, and now we've developed vaccines against it, and many people have developed immunity to it, having been exposed to it. A coronavirus isn't necessarily that serious in people who aren't immunocompromised or aren't young or the old. People get colds all the time from coronaviruses. So the question is, how serious is this going to be in terms of the kind of illness that it causes. If it does achieve more sustained spread, and all the indications are it's probably a mild illness at this point. The only reason you'd be more concerned is because a lot of people don't have any prior exposure to it, don't have any pre-developed immunity to it. But right now, based on what we can tell, it seems to be a mild illness.
Dr. Gottlieb, thank you for joining us by the phone and putting this in context.
Thanks.
Shares of Boeing, meantime, following a news that the company doesn't expect regulators to sign off on the 737 MAX until June or July. Joining us now is CNBC.com airline reporter Leslie Josephs, who actually broke the story ahead of that Boeing statement. Leslie.
Hi. So, yeah, we just found out today that Boeing is not expecting the plane to come back. They're telling suppliers and airlines and lessors, their other customers, that it's going to be 2020, and that's the beginning of the ungrounding process. What that means is that's when they essentially think that regulators are going to sign off on that. That doesn't mean that we're all going to be able to fly in a MAX the next day. The airlines need to train their pilots. They need to do some maintenance work and other things that should take about a month more. The other thing that this means for airlines, and we have a lot of earnings coming up this week, starting with United after the bell, is that they're going to go another summer without this plane. They've already done that, and that's the peak season for revenue.
Leslie, two just quick follow-up questions to give us context of perhaps why the stock is down so much, 4.8% as we speak. Firstly, where was the expectation before this statement, i.e. how many months has it been pushed back? And how certain was the statement in terms of them expecting to then meet this new target? Because clearly there's been multiple delays, and you can forgive investors like Steve next to me for not believing the latest forecast of when it comes back.
Wolf, that's a very good question. The airlines and have been, of course, been pushing back when they think that the plane is going to come back from their schedules, I think about a dozen times at this point. Boeing doesn't want to give a firm date that they can't meet. And as we remember from Dennis Muhlenberg, whom Boeing fired last month, who had stuck to this end of 2019 date for when regulators are going to sign off, caused a lot of friction with the FAA, the regulator that actually has to give the blessing to this plane. That caused a lot of problems by sort of sticking with that. Boeing probably wants to sort of surprise to the upside if possible, or give at least a more realistic range. I had heard from some executives that they were being told sometime in the spring, which is a very vague period. I mean, we're talking hot weather, cold weather. But now this is the first time David Calhoun became CEO a week ago, or just over a week ago, and this is the first guidance the company is coming out with. And it shows that they're trying to be a little bit more conservative, and that's probably why you're seeing that big move down.
Leslie, thanks very much for that, and great work breaking the story earlier. Steve, is there now no share price on Boeing that would lead you to increase your position again until this plane is back in the air?
I need to see some positive news flow, because there are other areas of the market where I'm making money, where I could make money. So why do it here with the management that I just don't view as credible?
Yeah. I mean, airlines were already trading lower because of these virus concerns. They took a leg even lower on this Boeing news. United, which is reporting after the bell, being a key example. Also suppliers like Spirit Aerosystems, which is now down 4%, GE, some of these other names. It's not just Boeing that takes the hit from this.
So United's a relatively large position for me. Not relatively, it is a large position. About 15% of their revenue comes from Asia Pac. So that's pretty large, about 6% directly or so from China. So they're one of the biggest, their second biggest market. So that's what's pressuring the shares. I'm looking for a good quarter after the close. I think this is a buying opportunity. And as far as the market goes, it's also a buying opportunity. I looked at back at all the other pandemics. You talked about SARS, about swine flu, about bird flu. It just depends what else is happening in the market. And some of the pandemics, the more recent ones, the market actually went up because you had other factors going on. So this doesn't kill business forever. It may, some travelers may, say, okay, maybe I don't have to go now. But overall, it's unfortunate, of course, for the human lives that are impacted. But in terms of business and markets, it's really a non-event. It's a buying opportunity, nothing else.
All right. Let's turn now to the markets more broadly. Bridgewater Associates founder and chairman Ray Dalio offering some advice to investors sticking with cash in their portfolio. Here's what he said at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland.
The issue is you can't jump into cash. Cash is trash, okay? You have to have a well-diversified portfolio. And first of all, you have to be global, and you have to have balance. I think that you have to have a certain amount of gold in your portfolio, or you have to have something that's hard.
Let's get over to Mike Santoli now for the market dashboard. He's doing a deeper dive on those cash levels. Mike.
Yeah, Morgan, it's hard to argue against the idea that people should have a well-diversified portfolio going into almost any environment, but it's not clear that people need to hear, investors need to hear, not to jump into cash because cash levels are not particularly high at the moment. This is from the just-released monthly Global Fund Manager Survey from B of A. It's of institutional investors, globally speaking. Cash levels in those portfolios, 4.2%. It's basically steady at a multi-year low. It kind of goes back to about 2013 before you saw that. As you can see, this blue line, it spikes, meaning cash levels go up when the market's under some stress. Those are the good buying opportunities right here, right? Blue line spikes, that's cash going up, and that's usually when the market is trying to make a low. So right now, we're at a multi-year low, not critically low, but definitely lower than it has been recently. Now, take a look at the other side of things, retail investors. This is from the private client business, also of B of A. This is the old Merrill Lynch business. And again, 11% cash in these retail portfolios. That's a percentage of assets in these portfolios. Also, below average for the long term, certainly up off the lows from early 2018, but it's not suggesting to me that you have, in aggregate, a lot of people huddled in cash. Look now at flows. This is cumulative flows into stocks, cash, and bonds. And obviously you see money market funds, that's cash. That has been soaring lately. And again, this is cumulative over a number of years, over the past year anyway. Bonds also, massive inflow. In the last week, it was a tremendous inflow into bonds. In fact, a record, more than $20 billion into bond funds. And you have a steady bleed out of stocks. What's going on? The stock market's going up. Therefore, people's equity allocations are going up. And you have a lot of people in these kind of balanced, kind of rebalancing portfolios that are going to automatically rotate out of stocks into bonds. Obviously also a demographic picture, but to me, it does not suggest that in general, the world is hiding in cash and letting the market pass them by, guys.
Mike, thanks very much for that. We'll see you again a little bit later in the hour. Now, still ahead here on Closing Bell. Tesla shares taking off after another Wall Street firm hiked its price target on the stock. This time, a street high of $800. The details coming out.
Plus, Nestle CEO discusses the health of the consumer and the global economy from the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. And as we head to break, here's a check on bonds as yields decline across the board.
The Bond Report is...
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Go courtside with the NBA on TuneIn. With the NBA on TuneIn, hear your favorite team and players take on their biggest rivals during the biggest games throughout the year, including regular season showdowns, the 2020 All-Star Game, and the NBA Finals in June, featuring the home and away calls for all 30 teams. Plus, with the NBA on demand, relive the best moments of the season by listening to the past games in their entirety. Listen to the NBA all season long on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds, or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
10 years ago, the book The New Jim Crow helped ignite a movement against mass incarceration.
This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, I'll talk with the author, Michelle Alexander.
Millions of people have been relegated to a permanent second-class status. It wasn't a message people were eager to hear, but I think it is today easier to see.
Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour on TuneIn today.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Time now to get word on the street. New Street Research raising its price target on Tesla to $800 from $530. That's a new street high. The firm is bullish on Tesla's addressable market, order execution, and technological dominance over its peers. It's up 6.5% today. Macquarie Research initiating Visa and MasterCard at Outperform, saying that the stocks are best positioned to cash in on the emergence of the Gen D millennials using debits cards to fund apps like Venmo or Square's Cash App.
And finally, Oppenheimer upgraded Costco to Outperform, saying that the stock's recent underperformance creates an attractive entry point after strong holiday sales. The firm also says a potential special dividend of $10 could be on its way. Here's Costco CEO talking to Jim Cramer.
One of the things about low prices, you generate a lot of volume. When you generate a lot of volume, you don't generate cash.
Right.
And you have a responsibility to your shareholders. And, the stock has appreciated. We've done special dividends in the past. We always think about it when the right time might be to do another special dividend. We have no plans right at the moment, but we'll always look at that.
That full interview is coming up tonight on Mad Money. Meantime, Steve, any of these names ones that you like?
Well, Tesla reminds me of the old "no child left behind, no analyst left behind."
Right.
I mean, if you're going to raise your price target, be the highest on the street. That way you'll get the most calls from investors. That's how it works. That's the game they play. I don't know how you can value it. You just don't know what the future is. In terms of MasterCard and Visa, I own Visa. You can own one or the other. I still like them. Sure, valuation stretched historically, but what isn't? The acquisition they made will help with millennials. Mm-hmm. So I think they keep going. Consumer-driven economy, and I know that I can carry cash in my pocket for a few weeks and not use it. I'm just using my credit cards. So it's not because I'm cheap, Will. I know what you're thinking. I'm just using my credit cards.
No, I mean, and a big point of the note as well is the fact that the fintech revolution and millennials is benefiting these two companies as opposed to threatening them. And that's a big point for their upgrades there. Up next, Sarah's big interview with the CEO of Nestle, why he says the company is making a big bet on plant-based meats. Closing bell. Back after this.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30-gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
On the goal line, scores! It takes it home! Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Gonna move, hit a shot, he scores!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
On this week's On the Media, we peel away the many layers of the Warren Sanders sexism sideshow.
The first layer is, can we acknowledge that in a country that has only elected male presidents throughout its history, that gender is a factor?
Also, depressed by politics? We have a plan for that. Listen to On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast on TuneIn today.
Be better informed, be better prepared. The Better Network is on TuneIn. This is Brent Musburger. Search BETR and start hanging out with me and my guys in the desert weekday afternoons. The Better Network is now on TuneIn.
Welcome back. Sarah making her CNBC return from the World Economic Forum in Davos earlier today, sitting down with Nestle CEO Mark Schneider to talk about the company's sustainability efforts. Sarah.
In the spirit of Davos, you have actually recently announced big things, $2 billion that will go toward working on recyclable plastic that's safe for food. How big of an effort is that?
It's a huge effort, and I think it ties right in with the sustainability focus that the World Economic Forum has this year. It's a major challenge, plastics waste, so recycling is one of the ways to solve it. We need to focus on food-grade recycling because obviously the packaging needs to be fit for food and beverage products, and we want to get that market going. We're willing to spend $2 billion on it.
Why and how do you justify the $2 billion as the best use of capital for shareholders to do this?
We said right up front we're going to be making this earnings neutral, so we'll find other efficiencies in our manufacturing and supply chain to make up for this. Now, you could say those efficiencies could have been flowing to the bottom line. For a food and beverage company and a consumer packaged goods company, it's important to stay relevant to its consumers. Consumer tastes are shifting fast, and so they want to know that their packaging is not causing environmental concerns. And so this is all about staying relevant to today's consumer.
How far away are we from something like, I'm thinking Kit Kat wrappers, other kinds of plastic wrappers that are made from recycled material?
We're already having some types out in the market. In Japan, for example, I think scaling up is a 5-year effort. We have committed to make all our packaging recyclable or usable by the year 2025.
You mentioned consumer taste changing. If you look right now at your portfolio, just thinking of brands, everything, mentioned Kit Kat, Gerber, are these brands that millennial consumers want?
It's not about the brands, it's about the products. And I think what people want is healthier choices, and they also want products that come with a lower environmental footprint. If those get offered under trusted brands, and I think Gerber is a great example, then all the better. People trust good brands, but they want to be sure that the product meets their expectations.
Wanted to hit some of the hot spots in the portfolio. The Starbucks deal, for instance. Seems like it's really driving results. The stock is near a record high. What have you got planned on that?
So Starbucks was one of our signature deals. That was a $7 billion transaction a year and a half ago. It was also important, once we struck the deal, that 6 months later, we were out with 24 products that got launched last year, and that were meeting great success in the market. What's on tap now for this year and the next year is a wonderful pipeline of new Starbucks products that we bring to the retail shelf. So it's all under the same partnership, but we recognize that people want to get entertained by something new every day, every year, and so we have a great pipeline coming up.
Do you expect to see continued above category type growth for these products?
For the Starbucks range, for sure, and for coffee, where we are the world market leader, it's our ambition to grow at least in lockstep with the market, if not ahead.
What about pet food? Purina's also done quite well.
Pet food is one of our other signature high-growth categories. I think you see two major trends around the world. One is premiumization in the Western world, and the other one is what we call caloric conversion in developing markets, so people feeding their pets with real pet food as opposed to household waste. Both of these trends are on fire, and they lead to above-par growth.
What are you seeing out of the U.S. consumer in particular these days?
The U.S. market going really strong, and the same themes, so healthier choices, lighter choices, and also a growing environmental concern.
Well, to that end, you've sort of entered the plant-based burger, alt burger world, competing with Beyond and Impossible. What's the difference for your awesome burgers, and how have they been resonating with consumers?
So we're really focused on this. I think plant-based meat alternatives is a growing opportunity for years to come. We want to be right out there. This is in our core business, food. And so I think we have a great offering. For the U.S., it is yellow pea-based. For Europe and Asia, it is soy-based. So we're the only company that offers burgers on two technologies, yellow pea and soy. And you'll be able to taste some of these products. Both are wonderful. Again, this is all about just meeting local tastes. And you'll be able to taste some of these here at the World Economic Forum, where we do the catering for the plant-based day tomorrow.
I noticed that you also have a deal with McDonald's in Germany for some of these vegan meat alternatives. In the U.S., Beyond Meat stock has soared, as you know, and one of the expectations is that they could get the McDonald's deal. Do you have a shot at the McDonald's deal since you're already working with that company? I mean, is that a misplaced idea that it's going to go to Beyond Meat?
Would love to be helpful. It's not appropriate for me to speculate on client discussions. We're generally interested in working with fast food chains in addition to the retail opportunity, but I wouldn't want to comment on specific client relationships.
While we're in Europe, you're a Swiss-based business. You sell all over the world. What's Brexit going to mean for you when it actually happens in a few weeks and then 11 months later once they can hopefully work out a deal?
Well, I think the good news is that with the proceedings through the fall, that it seems a hard Brexit has been avoided, and so it's a more orderly process. Our first priority, given that the UK is one of our key markets and top 10 markets worldwide, we wanted to be sure that we're not leaving the UK consumer alone, that there's not going to be stockouts and any supply interruptions. A lot of the UK products are imported, or raw materials are imported that are then being manufactured into final goods in the UK. And so an orderly process to us was a top priority, and it seems this is shaping up.
So the whole notion of food shortages and price spikes, is that off the table?
It looks, for now at least, it's going to be a better solution compared to a hard Brexit. Where the pinch points are going to be during the year, we'll find out. We did run extra stock levels to be sure that we live up to our consumer commitment, and we're prepared either way.
What about the phase one trade deal between the U.S. and China? Has that had an impact? Have you seen any difference in Chinese consumption? Have you had to adjust manufacturing at all?
Generally, both for the U.S. and for China, most of what we sell in these markets we make locally. So we're a company that is very deeply committed to local manufacturing, and hence there was not that much exporting back and forth that we were exposed to. But of course, as a global company that's present in 190 countries, we're in favor of everything that's pro-trade. And so finding a deal is better than finding no deal.
Also wanted to ask about water. My colleague Wilfred Frost is a huge sparkling water drinker. You've got so many of the well-known brands, Pellegrino, and yet water for you is growing less than the overall category. Why is that?
We have some homework to do in water. We recently went through a reorganization. I think we're now set up in a much more focused way, so we are determined to fix that very quickly. You're right. Water around the world is a high-growth category, growing 5% plus in most markets. We were more or less flat for most of 2019, and so this is clearly something we have to address. We have some of the leading brands. We have a wonderful, high-quality offering, and so there's no reason why we should underperform on a continued basis.
What's the innovation that you're most excited about right now for 2020?
Overall, I think plant-based will be a continuing theme. Not
just
only
a fad?
For meat alternatives. No, this is going to be a 10, 20, 30-year thing. I think it's one of the best ways to meet health goals with sustainability goals. We call it right for you, right for the planet. This is not going to be a short-term fad. I'm pretty convinced.
I didn't know they had Poland Spring as well. That means they have my go-to still and sparkling. Pellegrino, let's be honest, it stands out.
So plain sparkling, no flavor for you.
Plain sparkling. Perrier is good as well, which they have, but it's almost too sparkling. Whereas Pellegrino just gets the level of fizz absolutely right.
But you want to drink from a glass bottle because the chemicals break down the plastic from the heat. So that's not good for
I'm with you, Steve. There we go. Great interview from Sarah. More to come as well in the next hour from Davos and Sarah. So stick around for that. Meantime, time for a CNBC News update. Sue Herrera's got it for us. Hi, Sue.
Indeed, I do, Wilf. Thanks very much. Here's what's happening at this hour, everyone. GlaxoSmithKline halting production and distribution of Excedrin Extra Strength and Excedrin Migraine. This after discovering inconsistencies in how they transfer and weigh ingredients. The company says they do not believe that there is a safety risk to consumers, and they do expect to resume production shortly. Secretary of State Pompeo meeting with injured members of the Colombian military while announcing a U.S. project to improve their ability to find successful careers. He was accompanied by the Colombian defense minister.
We recognize the injuries and suffering that some of you and your families have experienced. Today, I'm announcing a $1 million project to improve the ability of wounded warriors to find employment, to have successful careers after their time in service.
And it now appears part of the University of Richmond was built over the graves of slaves. Research seems to point to evidence that a section of the university covers what used to be a plantation. It is now believed a slave cemetery was part of that plantation. You are up to date. That's the news update, guys. Morgan, I'll send it back downtown to you.
Sounds like an archaeological site in the works to me. Sue Herrera, thank you. Still to come, IBM will report earnings after the bell. The company's CFO will break down the numbers in an exclusive interview coming up.
Keys, check. Phone, check. 70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds, or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
Be better informed, be better prepared. The Better Network is on TuneIn. This is Brent Musburger. Search BETR and start hanging out with me and my guys in the desert weekday afternoons. The Better Network is now on TuneIn.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow and TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
On the goal line, scores! It takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
Hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Move, and a shot,
from regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Welcome back. We've got just over 20 minutes left of the session. Let's go over to Mike for the second installment of today's Market Dashboard. Hey, Mike.
Hi, Wilf. Taking a look at IBM ahead of its report later. Really, company faces a pretty skeptical Wall Street. This is the breakdown of analyst ratings up top here. This is the number of analysts. This is how many have a buy. 20 analysts right now. Only about 4 of them are recommending the stock right now. It's hard to say that the street has been wrong about the stock in the last year or so. You see fewer and fewer recommendations, but the stock has basically been sideways in a very strong market. Look at the valuation now by 2 measures. First of all, the price to earnings ratio on a forward basis, it's now around 10. Obviously, it's a very discounted valuation relative to the market, which is up around 18. Pretty similar to what a lot of the older tech kind of slow to no growth companies are at. On this basis, it looks cheap, but look on enterprise value to cash flow. This is a more all-inclusive measure of corporate value, includes net debt. And what you see here is that enterprise value shot up here. That was when the company took on a good deal more debt to buy Red Hat. So it's still not necessarily way out of whack in terms of its 5-year history, but certainly doesn't look particularly cheap when you're looking at the overall net debt plus equity along with EBITDA or cash flow. So it seems like the company kind of caught in the middle there, not quite seeming outright cheap on all measures.
Man, I would love to see a chart that compares what you just outlined with debt versus share buybacks.
Yeah, we could go back and do that whole chronology too. A ton of share buy. And by the way, it's not necessarily easy to say that it was wrong, just given how it's been difficult for them to generate returns from investing in their own business at IBM.
Mike, thanks for that. Steve, in terms of coming into the quarter, last quarter they missed with easier comps than they have for this quarter.
I think they missed the last 5. Well, the last 4 or 5. So if the market pays a premium for consistency, they should be selling at a premium to the market. Unfortunately, it doesn't look that way. So if you take a look at the chart, that's a perfect example. Last one he had up there, on an EV to EBITDA basis, enterprise value to EBITDA, it's actually gotten more expensive as the stock has come down in price. So people always have to watch that. When a stock comes down like Boeing, they say, oh, Boeing's so much cheaper now. Well, Boeing's not cheaper because the earnings come down, the balance sheet has grown in terms of the debt.
That was EV to cash flow, I think, but no, we definitely take your point. Up next, we've got your last chance trade.
Plus, we are counting you down to earnings. Netflix, IBM, and United, all after the bell.
Listen, we know you're not here for ads, but while you're waiting for the music, cybercriminals might be waiting for you to expose your login credentials and payment information over Wi-Fi. Help keep your online activity private with Norton 360. It gives you multiple layers of protection, including secure VPN with bank-grade encryption, device security, password manager, and PC cloud backup. Go to uk.norton.com to get all-in-one protection starting at $24.99 for your first year. Terms apply. That's uk.norton.com.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
You might already know that TuneIn allows you to listen to all the pro sports leagues wherever you go. But did you know TuneIn is also home to the wide world of college sports?
Open three, DeAndre Hunter got it! Handoff Carruthers, big hole right side. He leaps and he surges in, touchdown!
From live college football, basketball, and baseball games to podcasts and coaches shows fueling your love for the game in your school. And the best part is, it's all free. Search college sports to find your team or league.
On this week's On the Media, we peel away the many layers of the Warren Sanders sexism sideshow.
The first layer is, can we acknowledge that in a country that has only elected male presidents throughout its history, that gender is a factor?
Also, depressed by politics? We have a plan for that. Listen to On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast on TuneIn today.
Welcome back. Here's a check on the closing bell big board. The Nasdaq hitting an all-time intraday high earlier today. Some of the biggest leaders in the index include Tesla, Costco, and Micron.
It's time for your last chance trade. 16 minutes left of the session. Steve, what are you going for?
Qualcomm. So it's a stock that I started buying, I guess, about a month ago, and it's working. You've had a couple of upgrades come out. Here's the story. 5G is not just an upgrade to 4G. 5G is a platform-enabling technology, whereas 4G is a mobile network. Qualcomm owns the IP here, which is why Apple settled with Qualcomm, because they want to use Qualcomm chips in their phones. So Qualcomm, it sort of missed the whole cycle. It's been like dead for 10 years. If you go back to 2011, the stock was 80. But this time, they've got it right, I believe, and you'll see the stock continue to move. Because if you want to be in phones, if you want to be in the Pirelli Cyber Tire, which will read the pavement and communicate what it's seeing to other cars on the road. Now, of course, you got to see 5G massive build-out, so you're a few years away from that. You want to own Qualcomm.
Had a decent run in the short term. You're still buying even at these levels?
No, I bought my last, thankfully, before the last upgrade. So it's a pretty full position right now. I don't know what the quarter's going to be. Don't really care. I hope it gives me more opportunity.
All right, Qualcomm. Up next, we'll bring you uninterrupted coverage of the final minutes of trade when we take you inside the market zone. And you can always watch or listen to us live on the go on the CNBC app. We'll be right back.
When your skin is feeling dry and crinkly?
Let's get this right, sir. You didn't see three men dressed as clowns take off in a van with a Renaissance painting because you were distracted by, and I quote, a sporty red compact SUV with a bold mesh grille, a sculpted bonnet with sweeping roofline on diamond-cut alloys.
And beautiful rear haunches.
So, you saw a Jaguar E-Pace. But what about the clowns?
What clowns?
Jaguar E-Pace, designed to steal attention. Search Jaguar E-Pace.
Listen, we know you're not here for ads, but while you're waiting for the music, cybercriminals might be waiting for you to expose your login credentials and payment information over Wi-Fi. Help keep your online activity private with Norton 360. It gives you multiple layers of protection, including secure VPN with bank-grade encryption, device security, password manager, and PC cloud backup. Go to uk.norton.com to get all-in-one protection starting at $24.99 for your first year. Terms apply. That's uk.norton.com.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30-gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No. Biggie? With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Smart Sports Wagering Talk is now on TuneIn. This is Brent Musburger. The Better Network is now on TuneIn. Search BETR. Be better informed. Be better prepared. And remember, cash and tickets is what it's all about.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip
Follow
Bayless.
at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
With 12 minutes minutes left in the trading day and major averages lower. We are now in the closing bell market zone. Commercial-free coverage of all the action going into the close.
Cnbc senior markets commentator Mike Santoli is here to break down these crucial moments of the trading day. And today we've got Steve Weiss from Short Hills Capital as well. We are at the moment down 165 points on the Dow, the S&P down just 1/3%. Let's get things off with casino stocks under pressure as concerns over China's coronavirus worsen. Contessa Brewer has more. Hey, Contessa.
Hi there, Wilfred. Yeah, this week is one of the most important to casinos in Macau. Lunar New Year, and as fears about the coronavirus spread, worries over travel and tourism are slamming those casino stocks hard. Taking the biggest hit now, Hong Kong-based Melco Resorts. It's down almost 10%, has been down there all day long. Las Vegas Sands, Wynn Resorts also off on the day. It looks like Las Vegas Sands down more than 5%, Wynn Resorts down more than 6%, MGM Resorts down almost 6%, which is less dependent on revenue streams coming from Macau, but of course still very reliant on Chinese visitors to Las Vegas, and that may be some of those concerns as well. Industry insider, the fear hits the stock first before there's any real data that there will in fact be an impact on visitation. But guys, Harry Curtis, who's the gaming analyst at Nomura Internet, has sent out a note saying if you look at what happened with SARS, if you look what happened with bird flu in 2008, visitation to Macau dropped precipitously.
Contessa, thank you. Sure. Mike, want to get your thoughts on this. We've seen, obviously, the casino stocks under pressure today, airline stocks under pressure, some of the retailer names under pressure.
It makes sense as a reflex, especially when you look at, by the way, Wynn is one of the most volatile stocks in the S&P. It's like moves twice as much as the market. It already had a very good run. Airlines, similarly, they were just starting to get a lot of the kind of tactical traders on board because it looked like the charts were in good shape. And then you have this news. It's going to be, at least a little bit of a question about volumes for the next few months. I don't think it changes the overall story. Typically, these stocks do bounce back from these episodes.
Mike, just broadly, though, when you've got Hong Kong down 2.8% and Shanghai down 1.4% this morning, I guess the U.S. selling is in perspective, an outperformance. But if we had a couple more days like this of China selling off, Hong Kong selling off, it's harder then for the U.S. to ignore it, even if it doesn't affect domestic sales of any of these companies.
It would be harder to ignore for sure, especially given the fact that the U.S. market seems like it's set up to seize on some kind of excuse to pull back. Anyway, so far today, it's been very resilient to all these headlines. But yes, that would be the case, I would imagine, especially if it's accompanied by more risk-off, lower treasury yields and things like that.
All right, the other big story of the afternoon. Shares of Boeing falling this afternoon after the company says it now estimates regulators won't sign off on the grounded 737 MAX until this summer. That is months later than what Boeing previously expected, and this comes on the heels of yesterday's report that the company is in talks with banks, including Citigroup and JP Morgan, to secure a loan of $10 billion or more as it faces rising costs from the 737 MAX crisis. Steve, I know we started the hour talking about Boeing, but just to revisit here, especially given the fact that it is such a big drag on the Dow today.
Yeah, it's a gift that keeps giving for shows like this because there's always something to talk about. Look, here's what I hope it is. I hope that Calhoun did a kitchen sink announcement. Despite the arrogance of the opening line of the release, I hope he came out and, said it's going to take longer than it will take and gave the outside. I hope he was smart enough to do that. I hope he was advised to do that. If that's the case, I'm still not buying it because I have no guarantee that there's going to be anything but negative news flow between now and the next few months. He didn't give a 6-month window. Hopefully he gave a 1-month window. So I still think you stay in the sidelines and wait.
I would say with regard to the raising of debt, it's a scary seeming juxtaposition. Oh, they're out there hat in hand for $10 billion. They're a regular issuer of debt. They have lots outstanding. It's trading okay. They have some that's going to mature in the next year or so anyway. So in other words, it's not weird that Boeing would be out there. However, they certainly are topping up the cash stores because they are worried about, the cash burn and all the rest. So I don't think you should take it in a vacuum that Boeing is out there trying to issue new paper.
I mean, it's also a debate when they're raising debt and they've got such a big dividend. You'd almost wish they weren't committed to the dividend and they could be doing buybacks instead at this price.
The psychology of a CEO is never to cut the dividend.
Oh, of course they're not going to do that, but it's an interesting dichotomy that they've got, that they're so committed.
But they're also, the yields on their outstanding debt is like 2-3-4%. It's not really onerous at all. If they can get it in-house, then they'll be okay.
And that would send absolutely the wrong message if they cut the dividend.
We've got just under 7 minutes left of the session, down 173 on the Dow. Uber testing a feature that allows some drivers to set their own fares. Let's get to Deirdre Bosa. Deirdre.
Hey,
Hey, Wilf, this is the latest move by Uber in response to the gig economy law here in California. Now, the new move allows drivers to charge as much as 5 times the fare that Uber charges on a ride, essentially setting up a bidding system. So far, it's being tested at 3 airports, Santa Barbara, Sacramento, and Palm Springs. The key here, though, guys, what you need to know is that Uber is trying to bolster its case. The drivers are not a part of its core business, that Uber itself is just a platform, an argument we've heard time and time again. Now, this move and others over the last few weeks are meant to show that drivers are free from the company's control and thus should be operating as independent contractors. Very much to be seen if lawmakers will agree with that. Back to you.
Deirdre, any sign that you could be getting any kind of similar move from competitor Lyft as well?
Morgan, that is a great question. Lyft has been a lot quieter on this law taking effect. They haven't made any changes as far as I'm concerned, and last time that I checked with them. So I'm wondering what their strategy is. But like Uber, they're not changing the status of their drivers. They're continuing to operate as independent contractors, while, as you see, the months go on, lawsuits are likely to build against those companies.
Deirdre, would you still always have both options, just to accept the regular Uber calculated price or switch to the sort of more arbitrage between the two price?
I don't think they know exactly how it's going to be rolled out. Uber says that they are just testing it at this point, and that's why they're testing it in smaller markets like Sacramento and Palm Springs. But basically, what happens is the driver can bid to see what they think the rider is going to accept, and if you bid lower, I think that way you actually get the ride. So it's a whole new system that essentially puts some of the power into the driver's hands, which is what the gig economy law, AB5, is trying to do.
All right, Deirdre, thank you. Investors are gearing up for Netflix earnings after the bell. Julia Borsten has the key thing to watch. Julia.
Well, Morgan, the key is subscribers. We'll see if Netflix's new streaming rivals impact the original streamers' growth. Netflix forecasts the addition of 7 million subscribers overseas and 600,000 new subscribers in the U.S. For the first quarter, investors expect Netflix to guide to over 8.5 million new subscribers. More or less could indicate concerns about market saturation and competition. Netflix shares bouncing back, but they did fall earlier today on news that David Einhorn's Greenlight Capital increased its short position, warning competition is denting Netflix domestically, while international subscriber growth is less valuable. Guys, back over to you.
Julia, thanks very much for that. Steve, where do you stand ahead of these numbers? Do you think still stretched? It hadn't as good a run of late, of course, as
it has. I just don't really see the offerings that we've seen come into the marketplace changing it. Disney, a lot of people getting free through Verizon, which I am. Apple's not really a factor yet. The others, Peacock's not out there really yet. So look, it's become a utility. It's not that expensive. So I think that this should not be a quarter where they're impacted. So I think the stock's okay. I don't know what subscriber growth is going to be. Don't really care quarter to quarter. It evens out. So if you own it, no reason to sell it. If you don't because you thought the price is too high, guess what? It's still too high.
Yeah, and I realize in terms of FANG, Mike, which we talk so much about, Netflix has been the outlier. It's actually down something like 1% over the past 12 months. Vastly underperformed its peers in that group. But how much weight can be put towards these numbers towards teeing up the rest of the group's earnings?
Not a tremendous amount, just because the rest of FANG, it's like automatic massive profits is the story, and that's why they get these huge premiums. For Netflix, it still is a little bit of a contingent story. It goes quarter by quarter in terms of these net ads. But, to your point, if the stock was above 400 a year and a half ago. It's down, well below that right now. The premium has been bled away to a fair degree. Question is, enough or not? And that's what we'll know with the numbers coming after.
Mike, undertones in the market, what are you looking at?
They're soft, but not all that terribly negative. If you look at up versus down volume, it has been more to the downside all day. That you see more than twice as much downside volume as upside volume. So kind of a stealth profit-taking move, and also defensive. If you look at low volatility stocks versus high beta stocks over the last couple of days, you see that basically the defensives, low volatility, are outperforming by more than 1%. So that's with a lower yield environment and all the rest. Volatility index, very steady in the 12s. It's been that way for a while. Looks like it's carving out a floor. There's a little bit of bidding for downside protection going into the Iowa caucuses and Super Tuesday, among other things.
All right, we've got 2 minutes left to go here. Let's send it over to Rick Santelli for a check on bonds. Rick.
Yes, and Treasury rates are making lows right into the close. Look at a 1 week of 2-year note yields. Now at 152, we are down 4 basis points. Open the chart up to October. We are very close to fresh 3-month low yield closes, as you see on that chart. Finally, the same time frame with 10-year note yields, also on the lows at 176, down 6 basis points. So down 4 versus down 6, curve flattening. Treasury rates at 7-week lows with regard to where it's going to close. And Kate Rogers, even though the NASDAQ's down, it's basically got the same range as Friday.
Hey, Rick, that's right. We have been dipping in and out of positive territory all day. We're lower by about 0.25% right now after hitting that new intraday high today. In terms of movers here, Tesla is the best performer in the NASDAQ 100 today. That's thanks to an increased price target of $800 from New Street Research. Costco also on the move higher, one of the best performers in the NASDAQ 100 after an upgrade from Oppenheimer. Beyond Meat is something we've been talking about all day. That stock is up by nearly 20%. That's after Starbucks announced today it would be looking to move toward more plant-based options on its menu. And to the downside, airlines, United and American. I'm going to send it over to you, Bob Pisani at the NYSE.
Well, it took a global virus threat, but finally, LVMH dropped. It's been an absolute monster this year, even after acquiring Tiffany, a new high. But you see here down 1%, pretty modest drop. All of the big luxury names were weaker on those concerns. Lower bond yields help home builders. Lennar hit another high. Pulte is hitting another high. Those stocks have been on fire recently. There's the closing bell. Not quite the lows of the day. Dow Jones Industrial Average down 160 points, weighed down largely by Boeing. Welcome to the closing bell. I'm Wilfred Frost.
And I'm Morgan Brennan, along with Mike Santoli, CNBC senior markets commentator.
Let's check in on how the markets finished lower, albeit not too much lower relative to Europe and Asia overnight. The Dow, the biggest decliner of the major averages, down 0.5% because of Boeing's negative impact. The Nasdaq and the S&P down more like 0.2%, 0.3%. The Russell also down significantly, 0.8%. Energy, industrials, materials, the worst performing sectors. Real estate and utilities at the top, showing that defensive tone to today's trade.
We did also briefly hit a new all-time intraday record high for the NASDAQ earlier in the session as well, although obviously those gains did not hold. We are moments away from earnings from Netflix, IBM, and United Airlines, among others. We're going to bring you those numbers as soon as they cross. Joining us to talk about the market day, Jack Manley from JP Morgan Asset Management and Stephen Weiss from Short Hills Capital Partners is still with us. But first, Mike, we go to you.
Yeah, a little bit of a modest pullback, I would have to say. I mean, everyone has been able to say for weeks that the market looked very stretched. It's been this very persistent rally, and it's overbought, and people were too confident in the upside. That's been the case for a couple of weeks. You would have thought today you had good excuses for something sharper on the downside. Really didn't happen, so it looked like it was kind of a stalling out of some of the buying, but not much beyond that. We'll just see, though, if we continue to get pressured by the news flow overseas, whether we can kind of hold these levels or not going through the rest of the week.
Jack, do you see today's action as fairly resilient in the face of quite a few headline challenges?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that today is yet another day of proof that this market is extraordinarily resilient. We had some bad sort of one-off news when it came from earnings reports or perhaps some concern about this Chinese virus making landfall, so to speak, in the United States. But for the most part, I see markets brushing these things off and grinding higher in today's environment.
Steve, earnings, we get some additional names after the bell today, and it continues to bump up throughout the week. Is that really what's going to drive the markets from here on out, at least for the coming days?
I don't think the earnings that we're getting after the close really matter much. Unless, IBM said, look, if the market went by IBM, it'd be down over the last year and a half, and it's up. In terms of Netflix, specific case, United, we may get some chatter about the consumer. I think that'll be positive. So nothing there is really going to set off the market. I actually think today's a win, not just resilient, win. If you came in and looked at where China was, where Asia was, where the fear headlines were, you'd say we're going to be down a few percent. Basically, we're flat. Take out Boeing, we're flat. So today was a good game.
Mike, in terms of the positives to offset some of the other headline negatives, the tone from the president this morning suggesting that trade as an issue is off the table for at least the rest of this year. We knew that Mexico and China was improved. kind of got a tone today that Europe won't come into the bargain, at least until after the election.
Yeah, that averts a negative. I think the market has essentially said we're past trade as an immediate tactical market factor. I think that could only be upset by a surprise aggressive action from one side or the other. So I do think that's a net positive. But, we still are up a lot in a short amount of time. So you can say that the market held up just fine as it is, but we're still facing these headwinds of probably over bullish sentiment and a little bit of an overbought market. We have to keep that in mind.
It's pretty incredible, Jack. I mean, we started this month with ratcheting up tensions between the U.S. and Iran. Just how big is the geopolitical threat? Can we actually say it's off the table?
Well, I think we look at all these different things that were sort of worrying us moving into the end of last year, whether it is trade tensions with China, trade tensions with some of our other trading partners, potential parliamentary elections out of the UK, and then coming into this year with potentially escalating tensions with Iran. I think it is proof that some things have been coming off the table. It's proof that some things are coming back on, and that 2020 as a whole, I think, is going to look a whole lot like last year in terms of the sort of general overbearing in some senses geopolitical uncertainty. That may weigh on where confidence goes, may weigh on where multiples are able to go.
Let's check in on Netflix numbers, which are out. Julia Boston has them.
Well, that's right. Netflix revenue is beating estimates by a hair, coming in at $5.47 billion. That's above the $5.45 billion estimated. Earnings per share reported at $1.30. We're working out whether that's comparable with any of the expectations. But the key number to watch here is streaming additions, subscriber additions. The company announcing that it added 8.76 million global streaming net additions in the quarter. That's significantly better than the 7.6 million projected. But you see the stock declining in after-hours trading. That could likely be because the forecast for first quarter global additions is significantly less than Wall Street estimates. The company is saying it'll add 7 million net additions in the first quarter. That's versus expectations of 8.5 million from analyst consensus. One other keynote here, because there's been a lot of talk about slowing growth in the U.S., the company is now breaking out these different regions. U.S., Canada, the combination of U.S. and Canada, the company added 550,000 subscribers in the fourth quarter, paid net additions. That's less than the 600,000 expected just for the U.S., not including Canada. So we're going to continue to dig through the report here and find some other nuggets to report for you. One key thing here is they said average streaming paid memberships grew 21% year over year, while streaming average revenue per user increased just 9%. So less than the total increase in memberships. But we'll be back to you with more. Guys?
Julia, thanks very much for that. I mean, the specific U.S. number was 420,000 versus, as Julia said, 600,000 net adds expected in the U.S. Mike, blown out by quite a significant beat on the global net adds, but perhaps the way the market's reacting, an indication of how U.S. subscribers are valued more than international.
Well, they're valued more for sure, although I don't see this as a tremendous move in the stock. I think it's kind of sorting out whether the company is being a bit conservative, perhaps, in its first quarter guidance, given the fact that it missed its own guidance a couple of times not that long ago. So I do think you have to kind of take the kind of push with the pull in terms of these results. But yes, I do think that there's a heightened sensitivity to the domestic competitive landscape right now. So the slight shortfall is probably, it's obviously not good news, but a 3% move in Netflix after earnings, it qualifies as relatively muted.
Yeah, just to put that one in perspective. Steve, want to get your thoughts on these numbers, especially the Q1, the fact that the guidance is light. I mean, we can talk about the fact that you had phase one, so to speak, of the streaming services coming online last quarter. You start to get more come the spring. So presumably, with those numbers, you're starting to see a fuller effect.
Yeah, so I think what you got to question is, have you reached a saturation point in the U.S. of subscribers? Who's the marginal subscriber now? Netflix has been around for quite some time. However, if you look at it, as you look at a portfolio, they've actually done pretty well with vastly exceeding subscriber growth overall. So, look, I'm not in this stock. I don't foresee myself getting stock any point soon, but the foreign growth, which is what they tell you the story is impressive.
They're mentioning here, just reading through some of it, that The Witcher is tracking to be their biggest season one TV series ever. There's some mentions as well about the likes of The Irishman, Marriage Story, The Two Popes, of course, the big feature films that they released during the quarter. They're saying that they were very popular with their members, but didn't give anything stronger than that. So I don't know whether that is an underwhelming comment relative to what they said about The Witcher TV season.
Although
one moment, we're just going to dive into IBM numbers, which have hit. We'll come back to Netflix and IBM, of course, on the discussion, but Deirdre Bosa has IBM.
Hey, Wilf, Big Blue reporting an unexpected return to revenue growth with a slight beat on the top line, $21.78 billion in revenue versus $21.6 billion. As you can see, shares are popping more than 4% in the after hours, and that breaks its streak of 5 quarters of year-over-year revenue declines. Bottom line, also beating by 2 cents here. Adjusted EPS coming in at $4.71. Cloud is key here, of course. Investors, they want to see how its big Red Hat acquisition is helping IBM compete with the other giants in this space, Amazon, Microsoft, Google. Company says that cloud revenue in the quarter was $6.8 billion, its largest ever, and now comprises nearly 30% of total revenue. Also, guys, better than expected full-year operating guidance, propelling those shares higher. Today's report, a much-needed beat after underperforming the S&P since its last report. And guys, Squawk Box, we'll be talking to CEO Ginny Rometty tomorrow from Davos. Back to you.
Yeah, and we'll be talking to CFO Jim Kavanaugh in just a short while, Deirdre. Thanks for bringing us those numbers. Mike, want to get your take here. I mean, stock's up 5%. That is a pretty notable move.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly well better than expected. You had low expectations that were easily beaten. They did talk about having, cut debt since the Red Hat acquisition closed. They have vowed to cut back on leverage that was taken for that. So that's all good news. The stock, though, at 145 is back where it was September 30th. So you have to basically say it's a sigh of relief and positive direction. Unclear if you can extrapolate this type of revenue growth, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a big move in the share price relative to a very small beat on each of the lines. But as Deirdre said, decent guidance, and the share price has been underperforming of late. 5% higher. We will be speaking with the CFO in just a moment. So we'll pivot in the meantime back. Mike, I interrupted you on Netflix.
Right. No, the other thing that the company said was that essentially their viewership per member stayed the same despite the fact that you had Disney Plus and Apple Plus entering the market. So what they're trying to convey is engagement with the content remains at a high level. And so they're going to throw a lot of these metrics out there to essentially say we're not yesterday's news.
On the topic of Netflix, Julia has more. Julia.
Yes, just want to dig in here on some of CEO Reed Hastings' comments about competition. He says many media companies and tech giants are launching streaming services, reinforcing the major trend of the transition from linear to streaming entertainment. Hastings has talked a lot in the past about how this is a global trend and a rising tide will lift all boats. Here he says, quote, "We believe if we do that well, Netflix will continue to prosper." As an example, in the fourth quarter, despite the big debut of Disney Plus and the launch of Apple TV Plus, our viewing per membership grew both globally and in the U.S. on a year-over-year basis, consistent with recent quarters. Then he breaks out in a chart here search trends on Google for The Witcher, their new series, along with The Mandalorian, Amazon's Jack Ryan, and Apple's The Morning Show, showing that they're continuing to make gains and be part of the sort of public conversation in terms of what people are searching for, despite all of that competition. But I think it's really interesting. They mentioned the 76 million member households who watch The Witcher. They mentioned that the Michael Bay movie Six Underground was watched by 83 million member households. They didn't give us any numbers for The Irishman, Marriage Story, and Two Popes, the 3 movies that were nominated for so many Oscars. So I'm going to continue to dig in here. We'll see if they give any numbers on The Irishman, which obviously has been generating a lot of buzz for them. But so interesting that they're trying to set themselves apart in terms of having a head start of 22 years on the competition.
All right, Julia, thank you. Jack, want to get your take on some of these numbers that are now crossing the tape, especially the fact that IBM did post some better than expected numbers where cloud is concerned. I wonder how much of a gauge that is, or I guess a bellwether for what we could be seeing in terms of a turnaround in enterprise and companies feeling more comfortable making more investments.
I think sectors like enterprise are poised to do particularly well, considering what's happened in these last few days with trade negotiations. Some of the major sticking points in these areas were concerns about supply chains as they're related to tariff escalation, and the fact that we were able to ink out deals not just with China, but also come out with this new version of NAFTA, the so-called USMCA, is proof that C-suite confidence can perhaps come back a little bit, and more willingness to spend, less concern about that global supply chain challenge.
Steve, as we wrap things up, what's your take on what we saw from IBM, and does it influence your positioning in the tech sector at all? We talked Qualcomm earlier, very different types.
I'd have to listen to the call. I'd have to go through the release, the numbers on the surface. Congratulations to the company. They beat top, bottom line, increased guidance somewhat. So that's a reversal of the trend for the last 5 quarters. So hopefully it's in the right direction. I'd have to look. If they do get it together, and if the momentum has changed from a fundamental standpoint, then it's a buy. But I'm not so sure that's the case. Cloud is very competitive. Cloud's going to continue to grow because of 5G.
Steve, great to see you as always. Our thanks also to Jack Manley for joining us today. Up next, we'll dive more into Netflix numbers and what the results mean for the streaming wars, plus earnings from United Airlines due to hit any moment. Closing bell back in 90 seconds.
Retirement income is complicated.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30-gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
This ain't just lunch. It's the KFC fill-up lunch for $1.99. It's mighty fine. Tingles your spine, so jump in line while there's still time. 1 mini fillet burger, 2 hot wings and fries, all for a fist-pumping $1.99. What the... Fill up on the fill-up lunch for only 1 more week at KFC. Every day until 26th of January until 3 p.m. at participating restaurants, subject to availability.
Hello, I'm your captain for today's Virgin Atlantic flight. Please drop everything and pay close attention to the following announcement. The sale is now on. Our crew are ready to take your bags and stresses away. The cocktails are ready to serve, the movies are loaded, and we're all set for takeoff to the Caribbean. So, take your seat in our award-winning economy class. We're ready to go when you are.
The Virgin Atlantic sale. Fly amazing for less. For more details, visit virginatlantic.com.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down. Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Welcome back to Closing Bell. Breaking news on Intel now, and Josh Lipton has the details for us. Josh.
That's right, Morgan. So Intel announcing that at the company's January 15th board meeting, Andy Bryant stepped down as chairman. Bryant has been at Intel for a long time in a number of different roles, including CFO. Well, remember, he did tell us back in March 2019 that he did not intend to stand for re-election. The board electing lead independent director Omar Ishrak to succeed Bryant. Keep in mind, Intel is scheduled to report results Thursday after the bell. Guys, back to you.
All right, Josh Lipton, thank you. Netflix shares trading lower in an after hours after reporting earnings, although pretty modest move given what we've seen in previous quarters. Joining us now is Ed Lee of the New York Times and Cynthia Littleton of Variety Magazine. Good afternoon to you both. Ed, want to get your initial take on these numbers.
I mean, Disney Plus actually had a modest impact. I think even the company, suggests that there is the new competition has sort of eaten into it a little bit. But the bigger story with Netflix, it's an international business. That's where all the growth is really coming from. You know, they still anticipate getting somewhere between 60 and 90 million total U.S. subscribers, already past the 60 million mark. So they'll eventually get there. It'll just happen much more slowly. So the international growth is actually a positive for them. They beat their estimates on that side of it. But Disney Plus, you can't count it out, for sure.
Cynthia, what's your main takeaway?
You know, looking at the numbers, obviously, any cable operator in the country would be happy to see something like 420,000 ads in their service in this quarter. Domestic growth is clearly slowing. International growth is clearly being scrutinized. I actually think one of the bigger issues for Netflix is really what appears to be kind of a slowing of the buzziness of its content. I think that at this moment when they are facing so much more increased competition, the slowdown in the buzz around their shows is a real problem for them.
On that topic, Cynthia, there is less detail in the wording of the release about the major movies they released, like The Irishman, than there are about the TV series. Do you think they'd be served better by spending the big bucks on TV series as opposed to movies?
Well, I think it really is a surprise, given that the Academy Awards are around the corner. I thought for sure we would get some kernels of viewership data about their big contenders, The Irishman, Marriage Story, two movies that are, scooping up awards, have had all kinds of praise. But there is some speculation that they may not be playing to big audiences on the Netflix platform. And I think, again, they're a company that relies on awards. They rely on pop culture buzz. They have some growth with the show The Witcher. They have the show You, which they imported from Lifetime and have definitely turned into a hit. But they're a little thin on something that really captures the zeitgeist, a la Stranger Things or Orange is the New Black.
Yeah.
And that's hard. It's just hard to find good content that's going to create the water cooler buzziness. They are spending a ton of content. I think to Cynthia's point, I didn't see a lot of information on some of the sort of the late season releases that they had, though I think they want more time. They usually want to look at 28 days worth plus of actual being on the service before they release those numbers, but it's also a possibility that they haven't got.
It also says that they're changing how they report
the viewing.
So they're not requiring that you've watched 70% of a show.
I would love to know how many people started The Irishman and didn't get through it. I would feature that.
I think there's probably a huge portion, or the 70% of a 3.5-hour movie is still.
But to your point in this idea of spending more on content, I mean, they also outlined cash flow, and obviously this is
there was a change in the cash flow. There were. I know you're reading my mind here. They had sort of been saying in the past expect about $3 billion in negative free cash flow for 2020, which is about what they had in 2019. They're adjusting it down to $2.5 billion. So that's interesting, right? So we keep talking about Netflix as a cash burn company that spends tons on content. They're still going to spend tons on content, but they're burning less. They want to get to basically self-funded, right? Which is it's an interesting thing to say for a public company, but that's their goal. That's what they want to get to.
And the EPS obviously much higher than expected this quarter as well. Cynthia, in terms of final thoughts, do you think that they've got enough growth momentum there on the international side to offset any concerns on the domestic side?
I mean, clearly international momentum at the rate that they're forecasting, even if their first quarter 2020 forecast is less than expected, it's still an astounding number. I think it's really going to be about, how they manage all of that content spending, all of it around the world. I don't know if they're going to address this, but there's a new report out a couple of days ago pegging their 2020 spending at $17.3 billion. Even on content, even with this kind of international growth, that's a big number to cover. And I think that all the information that they're putting in about the interest in their shows and the shows being searched is an effort to show that they do have traction, that people are still seeking them out.
All right, we want to get back out to Julia Boorstin, who has more on these results for us. Julia.
Morgan, I want to point out a note here in this letter to shareholders about how they're measuring how many people watch their shows. They used to report household viewing of a title based on if an account or household has completed 70% of a single episode or series. They say now that they're going to report on households accounts that chose to watch a given title. There's a footnote. The footnote says chose to watch and did watch for at least 2 minutes, long enough to indicate the choice was intentional. So they're changing the game here in terms of how they measure. They're saying they're going to be doing something similar to what the BBC iPlayer does, including requests for the title most popular articles on the New York Times. So sort of this whole idea that based on who's searching for it and watching a little bit of it, you no longer have to complete 70% of a show. And they're saying the new metric, surprise, is about 35% higher on average than the old metric. So we'll see if there's any pushback in terms of them maybe inflating how many people are watching. You no longer have to watch 70% for it to count.
Yeah.
Just 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes will count now. For it to view.
In the footnote.
Which often comes on by mistake on Netflix.
Or I actually spend a lot of time looking for things at a few minutes and then stop and then move on with my life. So I don't know how Julia feels about that, but that's how I...
And they're selective with when they tell us those viewing numbers anyway,
well,
which doesn't...
Julia said they said 2 minutes probably says you intended to at least start it.
Right.
So that's really what they're trying to make.
I mean, for all the debate that we have about things like The Irishman, if they do get some awards, they might then not be as obsessed about focusing in on those in the future. They've kind of ticked the box of awards. If it doesn't deliver also on the viewing figures, it won't be repeated.
This is all their own effort to try and measure and convey engagement. all that really matters ultimately is the trajectory of memberships and the pricing of those memberships. And that they report in the numbers. And, it's a little more muted, but it's still growing.
Yeah.
As you're saying, ignore this watch metric. Let's look at actual
you need
subscribers.
something to, to benchmark.
I think it's for Hollywood, and we talked about how their awards are important. And Cynthia brought up that fact. Part of the reason why is that they need to let stars know that they're a legit outlet, meaning you can win awards if you come work for us. And they care about that. That's the ploy there more so than, this will lead to more viewing. It may lead to more viewing, but the more immediate tactic there is to let Hollywood know we're kosher.
Ed, Cynthia, thanks so much for joining us. Time for United numbers, which are out. Seema's got them.
Wilfred, United Airlines reporting a 2-cent beat on its bottom line, while revenue of $10.89 billion, largely in line with fourth quarter estimates. In the release, the company calling the fourth quarter a, quote, great quarter, pointing to its cost performance despite higher fuel costs. CEO Oscar Munoz says, when I look at United's fundamental strength, I could not be prouder of what we've accomplished in such a short time. Now, it is worth noting the coronavirus outbreak and concerns around that sent shares of United down nearly 4% in today's trade. No comment from the company as of yet. The earnings conference call tomorrow morning. Guys, back to you.
Seema, thanks for that. Earnings call definitely be interesting, not least, as you said, with the Chinese coronavirus, but also the latest from Boeing. Still to come, we'll dive deeper into IBM's earnings when we're joined exclusively by CFO Jim Cavanaugh.
And a reminder, you can always watch us live on the go on the Cnbc app. Closing bell will be right back.
Let's get this right, sir. You didn't see three men dressed as clowns take off in a van with a Renaissance painting because you were distracted by, and I quote, a sporty red compact SUV with a bold mesh grille, a sculpted bonnet with sweeping roofline on diamond-cut alloys.
And beautiful rear haunches.
So, you saw a Jaguar E-Pace. But what about the clowns?
What clowns?
Jaguar E-Pace, designed to steal attention. Search Jaguar E-Pace.
I spy with my little eye something beginning with P.
People.
No, parrot.
I'll have to remember my binoculars next time.
Although you might not be able to see it, your small actions can have a real impact with Shell. Every time you fill up and use Shell Go Plus, you'll be protecting and replanting forests around the world. Make the change. Drive carbon neutral. Shell. Go well. See goplus.shell.com/CO2 for details.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Heading for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
IBM earnings out just a few moments ago. The stock up 4% after beating on both the top and bottom lines and posting surprise revenue growth, breaking a streak of 5 consecutive quarters of year-over-year declines. Joining us exclusively is IBM CFO James Cavanaugh. James, very good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Wilfred. Thanks for having me.
So talk us through this beat today, and in particular where you see for 2020 the momentum continuing.
Yes, well, obviously we're very pleased with the solid finish to our fourth quarter and fiscal year 2019. That was really driven by the acceleration of our hybrid cloud portfolio and also capitalizing, as you saw in these results, the synergistic effect of bringing IBM and Red Hat together. Our cloud in the fourth quarter was up 23%. Red Hat, we accelerated up 24%, and Red Hat, for the first time in history, eclipsed $1 billion of revenue in a quarter. But even coupled with that, we continue to drive the fundamentals across our business model, and you see that play out here in the fourth quarter. Strong operating leverage and margin, and strong free cash flow. Our margins were up 230 basis points, the best in over a decade. And I was listening to Mike earlier today. We generated $11.9 billion of free cash flow. And since the closure of the Red Hat acquisition, less than 6 months, we've now paid down $10 billion of debt in that period. So we feel pretty good about the book of our business and the portfolio as we enter 2020, which gives us the confidence in the guidance that we went out with.
I wanted to focus in, if I may, on the cloud point, James. Katie Huberty at Morgan Stanley downgraded the stock earlier in the week and said, based on their work, quote, that there are views of IBM's positioning in cloud that have not improved materially and in some cases deteriorated over the past year, suggesting that the likes of Microsoft Azure and Amazon AWS are still ahead of IBM in the marketplace. What do you say to that? Do these results suggest otherwise?
Well, I would just say, as CFO, let's take a look at the facts and the data and the acceleration that we've seen in our cloud performance throughout this year. We've went from low to mid-single digits in the beginning of the year to where we're exiting the year with over $21 billion on a trailing 12 months in terms of a cloud portfolio overall. So the numbers say one thing, but secondly, I think you're getting right at the heart of the rationale, the strategic and business rationale of why we acquired Red Hat. We now have the industry's first certified end-to-end hybrid cloud platform that provides that orchestration layer that allows us to differentiate in the marketplace. And I see over the last 2 quarters since the closure of the Red Hat acquisition, you've seen what it's done to the inflection point in our cloud base of business. And we see that continuing to accelerate into 2020.
Jim, talking about Red Hat specifically, as you continue to integrate that entity, what are the expectations for revenue growth this year? And at a time where cloud is getting increasingly competitive and you are seeing increased marketing dollars being ramped up at some of the other cloud providers, how is IBM looking at it and approaching it?
Well, I mean, we've been investing significantly over the last few years in building out a whole set of differentiated capabilities around cloud. You saw just recently where we collaborated with Bank of America to announce the first industry-specific financial services cloud built for continuous compliance as we move forward. So that coupled with the Red Hat acquisition,
what does that mean,
with
Jim?
modernizing...
There's lots of cloud services that lots of banks use. What does that terminology mean? I mean, all sorts of massive financial institutions have very deep and impressive cloud relationships with different tech companies. It sounds like you're using lots of big words to try and take an accolade.
Yep. Well, you probably understand this better than anyone, just given your background, Wilford. But the regulatory requirements, we satisfy over 500 regulatory requirements each and every day around continuous compliance as we move forward. And that's what we've collaborated with Bank of America on, which we're going to be scaling up in 2020 as we move forward. Our cloud overall has been predicated on a value proposition of differentiation around security and compliance as we move forward. And I think Bank of America is a great instantiation on why they partner with us overall.
James, great to speak as always. Thank you for your time and congrats on the numbers. The stock's up 4%.
Thank you very much, Wilford. Take care.
Up next, the CEO of Philip Morris International discusses how vaping-related illnesses are impacting the future of smokeless tobacco. Closing bell, we'll be right back.
T. Rowe Price Expert.
I spy with my little eye something beginning with B. Bike.
Nope. Banana tree.
Oh, of course. We must have missed it.
Although you might not be able to see it, your small actions can have a real impact with Shell. Drive carbon neutral by filling up and using Shell Go Plus today. Make the change. Drive carbon neutral. Shell. Go well. See goplus.shell.com/CO2 for details.
This ain't just lunch. It's the KFC fill-up lunch for $1.99. It's mighty fine. Tingles your spine, so jump in line while there's still time. 1 mini fillet burger, 2 hot wings and fries, all for a fist-pumping $1.99. What the... Fill up on the fill-up lunch for only 1 more week at KFC. Every day until 26th of January until 3 p.m. at participating restaurants, subject to availability.
The Norwegian sale is now on. Fly to Europe from £29.90, North America from £134.90, or South America from £189.90. And with low fares to over 150 other destinations, the world has never been closer. Start your journey at Norwegian.com. All fares are one way from London Gatwick. Baggage fees apply. Travel periods vary by route. Visit our website for more details. Sale ends Monday.
Smart Sports Wagering Talk is now on TuneIn. This is Brett Musburger. The Better Network is now on TuneIn. Search BETR. Be better informed. Be better prepared. And remember, cash and tickets is what it's all about.
Hey, NFL fan. Can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds, or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
Go courtside with the NBA on TuneIn. With the NBA on TuneIn, hear your favorite team and players take on their biggest rivals during the biggest games throughout the year, including regular season showdowns, the 2020 All-Star Game, and the NBA Finals in June, featuring the home and away calls for all 30 teams. Plus, with the NBA on demand, relive the best moments of the season by listening to the past games in their entirety. Listen to the NBA all season long on TuneIn.
Welcome back. It's time for a CNBC News Update with Sue Herrera. Hi, Sue.
Hello, Wilf. Hello, everybody. Here's what's happening at this hour. Senator Bernie Sanders responding to withering criticism from Hillary Clinton, who claimed in an upcoming documentary that nobody likes Sanders, and he's gotten nothing done in Washington.
Secretary Clinton is entitled to, her point of view. My job today is to focus on the impeachment trial. My job today is to put together a team that can defeat the most dangerous president in the history of the United States of America.
Airstrikes on rebel-held parts of northwestern Syria and the shelling of government-held areas killed at least 17 people today. That's according to Syrian opposition activists. The dead included a family of 8 consisting of 6 children. Hundreds of Central American migrants spent a cold night camping out on Mexico's southernmost border with Guatemala. Mexican National Guardmen prevented them from entering the country on Monday. The migrants vowed to try again to enter Mexico en route to the United States. You are up to date. That's the news update this